as the American Speed Association gallops past the midpoint in the season and smack into the Anderson Corral, everyone is staking out a piece of the championship turf. The St. Amant gang out of Columbus, focused, determined. They've had their run-ins at Anderson. The Knott gang out of Grand Haven, brash, fearless. They have nothing to lose and everything to win. The Seneca gang from Michigan, wily, unflinching. They have faced off with the best and are back to take what's theirs. The Hansen gang from Milwaukee, known gunslingers who have forsaken all other pursuits to claim the ASA territory. But even as the ASA showdown takes shape, a drifter rides into town. His only aim? To own Anderson. His draw was unmatched last week at Berlin. As the sun sets, there's room for only one to stand tall in this town. Welcome to coverage at the Weidner Anderson 400 at Anderson Speedway, where it all began 29 years ago for the American Speed Association. The fans have come out in record numbers here to watch 400 circuits on the smallest racetrack the AC-Delco Challenge Series will run in 1996. The 11th race of the season, live here on Prime. The weather itself cannot be better. 74 degrees, the temperature. It's a little breezy. You might need a light jacket, and an August evening could not be better for the gentlemen in the infield that will be doing the pit stops tonight. It's partly cloudy, but cool and cooling off, which will provide for some perfect racing. Welcome everyone to live coverage here on Prime. I'm Jim Trito along with Dave Burns. And Dave, drivers love this place. They hate this place, but it always provides a lot of action. Very exciting race here tonight. And the one thing you have to remember is we're putting 27 ASA cars on a quarter-mile speedway. What that means is you may go down a lap early, but don't worry about it. You've got 400 laps to figure things out here, and by the end of the race, there may only be 3 or 4 cars still on the lead lap. Last year, Joe Knott finished 2 laps off the pace. He still finished 5th. Ted Smokestad was down in 9th place. He was 5 laps off the pace. So patience is the key. Don't get excited too early. Hang in there, guys, till the end of the Anderson 400. And there have been some dominant runs here as well. In 1994, Steve Holzhausen, who won last week at Berlin, comes to his second ASA race after getting the full-time ride for Don Finetti and Finetti Motorsports. He comes into this race very confident because in 1994, the driver of this block number 5 led every lap of the race. His first ever AC-Delco Challenge Series win came here at Anderson Speedway. Another driver with an impeccable record is Scott Hansen. He'll start 10th tonight, but in 6 races here, he's finished no worse than 2nd. 2 wins and 4 runner-up finishes for Hansen out of Milwaukee. A great record, Dave, and looking at how Hansen is confident tonight, he's also worried a little bit about the points chase. He comes in 2nd to Gary St. Amant, but very impressive finishes here. Only 16 points now separate leader Gary St. Amant from 2nd place Scott Hansen. There's a lot of season left to go. Hansen would like to make a move yet this evening. The drivers on the front row are standing by. At least their cars are ready to go. Let's join our 3rd member of the broadcast crew, Sandy Hang.
Well, 2 years ago, when Steve Holzhausen started on the pole and led every lap from start to finish, he had a masterful crew chief behind him, Howie Leto, an incredible crew chief. When Holzhausen left the team, it left Howie working with another accomplished driver, that's Tony Raines. I'm with Tony now, who's on the front row. Tony, rumor is on the track this car is hooked up tonight. How does having Howie behind you make a difference?
Well, he always has had a good setup here at Anderson, and hopefully the car will stay that way the whole race. If not, him and I will work on it. Hopefully we keep that clean burn AFCO Pontiac up front here and come home with a win.
Tony Raines right now is 5th in the points. 41 points behind him in the championship race is Dave Sensiba, another driver. Today, Dave sits on the pole. Dave, you've had some hard luck lately. What are you thinking about tonight to put that all behind you?
Well, the West Michigan Chevy dealers, Lane Automotive cars, been running really good. We've had some problems with some lap cars when we're leading, so we're going to try to lead a lap and get our 5 points and maybe let somebody else lead for a while.
Well, Dave Sensiba says he's going to let someone else lead for a while, but I tell you what, this is one young driver that is looking for his first victory tonight at Anderson.
The 1994 Pat Shaw Rookie of the Year winner was Dave Sensiba. He'll have his work cut out for them. Tony Raines does have Howie Leto in his corner. It should be a great shootout to turn number 1. but those guys are also locked in a bigger picture, the 20-race ASA AC-Delco Challenge Series schedule points. You can see Tony Raines is 5th in points behind Gary St. Amant. We mentioned Scott Hansen already. He's only 16 markers back, Dave. Then comes Joe Knott, a first-time winner back at Lancaster, sitting 3rd.
Knott has had an incredible season. The first-time winners you mentioned at Lancaster. Sineker is in 4th now with a mid-season surge. Tony Raines in 5th. And if you look at Dave Sinsaba in 6th, he is still mathematically able to come home with the championship yet this season. Mike Miller, Brad Loney, Kevin Sawinski, and Tony Roper round out the top 10. And Jim, Tony Roper has had a great 1996. The last few races, he's done extremely well, and he qualified 3rd here tonight.
4 top 10 finishes for Tony Roper. He'll start behind that pair we just talked to, and they're all in a battle for the Manufacturers' Cup Championship points. Last week, Steve Holtzhausen won in a Ford. That extends Ford's lead in the overall championships to 7 over Pontiac. We see Ford dominating the season thus far with 6 wins.
They're still out ahead. Pontiac now in 2nd. Chevrolet kind of climbing in there in 3rd. They'll look for things from their pole sitter, Dave Sinsaba, yet tonight to try to bring home a little bit more for the red bow tie.
Well, we're going to get things underway in just moments. Here's Sandy Hang down on the start-finish line.
Well, joining me right now is Tony Smith with Weidner Chevrolet. They are sponsoring the race tonight. I know you've got something to say here tonight.
I sure do, Sandy. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Laps around this tight quarter mile, the high banks of Anderson Speedway. Coming your way next on Prime. The AC-Delco Challenge Series on Prime. Brought to you in part by Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it's wins, it works. And by your GM Goodwrench service dealer. We want your business. It's the wave lap as the American Speed Association comes home to Anderson Speedway. The Robbins family own this facility. They are also the owners of the American Speed Association based in nearby Pendleton, Indiana. Again, we're live just outside of Indianapolis, northeast of Indianapolis in Anderson, Indiana, about 30 miles. Track up 465. Let's look at the starting field. Dave Sinsaba earning the pole position, setting a new track record. Also under the mark set a year ago is Tony Raines, outside row in the clean burn Pontiac. In row 2, we find the Child's Tire Chevrolet of Tony Roper. Outside of him, current point leader in the wins Ford, Gary St. Amant.
Starting in row number 3, Kevin Sawinski on the inside. He had a pole earlier this year. He still leads the rookie points. Steve Holtzhausen, last week's winner, primed to get going here tonight, hopefully for a win. Inside row 4, Mike Eddy, the 7-time champion. And outside of him, Mike Miller, a win earlier this year at I-70.
Brad Loney still looking for his first career victory in ASA. Starts inside of Scott Hansen again. An impeccable record here. Top 2 or better in 6 events. Rick Beebe is starting inside row 6. Outside of him, the Super America Pontiac driver from Minnesota, Ted Smokestad.
Inside row 7, Bob Sineker, the all-time winningest driver in the ASA. Outside of him, Jack Landis. We haven't heard much from him lately. Hopefully on the quarter mile, he'll make things a little bit different. Carl Muscatin will start on the inside of row number 8 with the Odessa Chevrolet. And on the outside, Aaron Huff making one of his rare appearances with the American Speed Association.
Starting 17th will be Joe Knott. Outside of him, veteran Harold Fair, who has a win here. So does Tom Jones. Tom Jones, runs extremely well here. Outside of him, from Sturgis, Kentucky, Bill Baird.
Row number 11, it will be Dennis Lampman on the inside, the Gentle Giant, and on the outside, Dr. Yale Conley. Chet Blanton will start inside row number 12, and to his outside, Billy Turner.
Starting 25th will be Brandon Sperling, the Ultra Custom Wheels Pontiac. Brett Bell will start outside of him in 25th and 27th on the field. Inside row 14 will be Alec Pincinone in the Trim Class 2000 Pontiac. That's your starting field for tonight's 30th annual Weidner Anderson 400.
Well, Jim, they got in 16 qualifiers by virtue of the timing effort. Then they added a couple of guys by points, and at the end there we saw a couple more guys added by points, and the field makes up 27.
We mentioned the high banks. It's 18-degree banking in the turns, 4 degrees on the straightaways. They pit in the middle and the infield on the figure 8, so this track a very unique layout for the AC-Delco Challenge Series. Again, 18 degrees, the banking, and Dave, that's provided for some exciting racing. It does not become a two-wide racetrack until about lap 100 when the lapping begins and the fast guys start using the outside groove.
Well, the hard part about that is they will encounter traffic very early on in this 400 laps. 100 miles, the total distance. As we said before, 27 cars starting. Of those, 11 will be Chevrolets, 6 will carry the blue oval, and 10 will be Pontiacs. Dave Sinsaba, as you mentioned earlier, Jim, a new track record, 74.614 miles per hour.
A 12-second lap on a quarter mile. That's fast no matter what car you're in, a wing sprint car or an American Speed Association stock-bodied Chevrolet, Pontiac, or Ford. We see Sinsaba and Raines on the front row. West Michigan Chevrolet Dealers, the sponsor on Dave Sensiba's car. The third-year veteran of the American Speed Association. A surprise on the pole, but the Michigan driver will pace the field down to green. 27 cars coming down the front stretch, and we've got a green. Sensiba in second. Gary St. Amant runs third. Tony Roper having problems, and there's a big crash in turn one. Joe Knott's involved. Tom Jones, Dennis Latman also getting slowly off. And debris outside the racetrack. Joe Knott in a very tight situation there. Qualified 17th coming in, and already the action is starting here at Anderson.
Well, that was something they did not want to do, was start back, as far as you mentioned, 17th. And for Joe Knott, who's in the points chase, that was a bad starting position. They knew that something like this could happen early on, and Joe had that many more cars in front of him to get involved in the melee like this early on.
There's the fender from Tom Jones' Pace Jack's Pontiac as the rest of the field sifts their way through the debris. That's in turn number one here at Anderson.
We're going to get a look at this, Jim, down in turn number one where the incident began.
Tony Roper on the very inside of that black car may have bottlenecked things there. Joe Knott already in the backside of the Odessa Chevrolet of Carl Muscatton, and Lampman gets airborne.
Dennis riding high there reminds me a little bit of Bob Sineker at Lakeland. He got way up in the air.
So with the track being that tight, it's 45 feet wide, but very, very narrow in the groove. And look from the infield camera, Lampman showing off the barricade flasher colors to all that can see as his car is well up in the air. Knott spins, Tom Jones involved. Very tight situation and a very unfortunate situation for Joe Knott and Tom Jones, along with Dennis Lampman. Lampman just coming off a week ago running sixth. He was involved in a crash, and they had to rebuild the right front and change the rear end on his car. And now we see Knott already headed down the pit lane to get that hood fixed on the Valvoline Gravy Ford.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious Tom Jones did not expect things to bunch up that quickly. Sandy Heng is down with Joe Knott.
Well, right now his crew is frantically tearing off the hood and other body pieces on the nose, trying to make sure they don't get lapped. It's so important down here. The pit situation is dicey. A driver cannot stay in the pits very long for these kinds of repairs because they've got to get back out in the field to avoid being lapped, and it looks like Joe Knott just was able to do that.
Very tight on the quarter mile, and Joe Knott did make his way out. Dennis Lampman is also circling around, hoping to get his car repaired. 4 laps in out of 400 here at Anderson on Prime. Back with you live on Prime. I'm Jim Trado along with Dave Burns, Sandy Heng covering the pit action, and it has already begun. You see the damage there on Joe Knott's number 48. Lima, Ohio driver, and Dennis Lampman will file in at the tail end of this 27-car field, making 26 as the dejected Tom Jones looks things over. At the very bottom of the screen, you see Joe Knott's hood already underneath and popped up from getting in with Carl Muscatton, and Lampman had nowhere to go. He got into Tom Jones in a big way, skying off of that car. And looks like Jones might get repairs done, but I don't know, Dave. That looks like it was a lot of damage in a very short period of time.
Further up in the field, we saw that Tony Roper was slow on the inside, and that bottled a lot of people up. We still don't know what the problem is with Tony's car. He's drifted back out of the top 10. One of the things they were talking about in qualifying, Jim, and racing here is where the different braking points are on the track. A lot of guys take it at different places, so that already sets up the problem of getting into the turns without touching each other. Then to have something like a slow car bottle things up like that, it was just instant disaster for Tom Jones.
And Alan Pinson also has down pit lane. In the pits monitoring the Joe Knott situation is Sandy Heng.
Well, Joe Knott's crew has looked it over. They've also taped up that front end as best they could. They believe the damage at this point is only cosmetic. So good news from the Joe Knott pit.
Not the same can be said for the car of Tom Jones, who received a little bit more damage than that. And as Knott continues to cycle around here, there's Jones's car now, Jim.
Double truck, that's what that means when they put them both up. A little hammock situation. You see Jones's car, the body was ripped off by Dennis Lampman when he launched off of him. More importantly for Tom Jones, it's not only cosmetic, it's taken a lot of damage into the rear end area. It looks like you got maybe the lower control arm on the left front, and not a good situation. Tom Jones was looking forward to a good run here in the Palace Days Inn Pontiac.
He's always had good runs here, Jim. In fact, he's had his best career finish for a long time. Finished second here before he won at Jennerstown. But but Tom will be sorry to be out so early tonight.
As his car gets parked in the infield, the rest of the cars now are filing behind the pace car, which ducks in the infield. Jim Hahn, the pace driver, brings that Chevrolet Camaro down to the infield. Tony Raines and Dave Sensiba, the front row starters, will bring us back to green. Raines took the jump on the outside of row number 1. And we'll get back to green with Tony Raines, the leader. 11 laps in now, the Anderson 400. This situation repeats itself. When Steve Holtzhausen won this race in 1994, he started outside of row number 1, outside of Mike Eddy, and dominated the race in the Baker Motorsports 78 at the time. Now it's the 87 with Tony Raines in a clean burn Pontiac.
I think they had a little talk about that before the race, Jim. Tony really got down into turn number 1 around Dave Sensiba. But remember, Sensiba talked about letting somebody else lead because he's had such bad luck up there.
Well, Sensiba will file into second behind Tony Raines, and you see lapping of Carl Muscat, who was involved with that. His car was lifted in the air by Joe Knott in that altercation a few laps ago. We've already had 1 caution. 14 laps are in the Anderson 400. Raines in the Pontiac lead. Let's go down to another Pontiac driver, very dejected. Is he not, Sandy Haig?
Well, I'm here with Tom Jones. Yes, Tom, an early end to your evening. I know you didn't plan it this way. Tell us about it.
It's hard to hear you, but I got hit from behind and just knocked into that mess there, and somebody wasn't heads up. I don't know exactly what happened, really.
That's Tom Jones, a tough ending for today.
Off to Milwaukee for Tom Jones and his crew. They're thinking ahead to the big mile in Milwaukee next Sunday for the AC-Delco Challenge Series heading up to Wisconsin. 10th place battle now. It's Kevin Sawinski in the 1. 5th place, excuse me, in second, and right behind him is Scott Hansen, and Hansen slows in another crash. Over in turn 3 this time, Brett Bell, Billy Turner, and Joe Knott has a flat right front, right rear tire and broken right front suspension. We see the damage there to the Wonder Bar Ford of Brett Bell of Pittsboro, Indiana. Dave, a lot of carnage early.
Well, Brett was trying really hard this week. They had a situation in their shop there. Dennis Grossnickel is no longer with the team. He was the crew chief for Brett Bell and the Wonder Bar crew, and did not stay with the team this week. They worked on the car. They said they pulled a lot of all-nighters this week trying to get it right. Brett had to get in by the last chance race last night, and he raced hard there.
And Joe Knott once again in the pit. Sandy Haig.
Right now you're looking at the crew work on Joe Knott's car. They're putting on 2 new right side tires. You can tell he had a flat right front. Also, there may be a problem there with the suspension not looking good. They are looking through that. Crew chief Chris Bradley that you just saw peeking in, trying to figure out what's going on. It's a very, very tough situation for Joe Knott here tonight.
Jim, this is what we talked about with guys having problems early on, not to give up too much. And Billy Turner, big problem. That tire's going completely the wrong way.
You can see he got hit squarely in the wheel, the left front, steering arm, etc. has messed up the Santa Fe Chevrolet. Let's see if Billy can even turn right into the pit area. Here's another look. Catch it off of the backstretch, and we see
hello.
Billy Turner and Joe Knott, Billy Turner and Brett Bell involved, and Joe Knott sparking upside the racetrack, and we saw Joe Knott go by. His right rear was flat and his right front was caved in. Might have been contact with Billy Turner as they went down the back straight away, not trying to advance from the very rear of the field. As the Arena, Oklahoma-based team of Billy Turner goes to work, we're going to take a break. Tony Raines is the race leader. Sensiba, Sandemont, Holtzhausen, and Sawinski, your top 5. Back with you on Prime, just under green, 27 laps in the Anderson 400. Tony Raines continues to distance himself on Dave Sensiba. Here it is a lap ago, Dave Burns, and we said action will happen all night long.
Kevin Sawinski was running in 5th. Scott Hansen was trying to get underneath him. He touched him, and Hansen scoots by for, it was actually, his 5th position. And Mike Eddy followed through as well. You can see Mike now. It looks like Hansen's gotten the position cleanly away. Eddy follows through, and now Sawinski drops back a couple.
Hansen's in 5th. There's Mike Eddy running in 6th position. Kevin Sawinski in 7th. We did not see Mike Eddy in the top 10 in points. He's running 11th in points coming into this event. And he is on a mission each time out. Mike Eddy has to be reckoned with. He now leads rookie Kevin Sawinski. Sawinski had never been here before, but likes the place. He thinks it's a mini Toledo. As he runs 7th, he's got the master ahead of him. Mike Eddy, although very successful here, only enjoyed 1 victory in 25 starts coming into tonight.
Yeah, Mike has 4 poles to his credit, but only 1 victory, so it's been kind of elusive for him out here.
Crash on the backstretch involving Aaron Huff and Yale Conley. Huff spun 360 degrees. Conley now has a flat tire. Very tight quarters here at Anderson Speedway. A very fast and tight quarter mile. 12-second laps. The shortest racetrack the American Speed Association will visit in 1996, and it could be one of the highest bank tracks, taking away Odessa Speedway. And looking at how things are shaping up, Dave, there's no room for error here.
Things happen very quickly. Yale Conley obviously going to be disgusted with that situation. Aaron Huff, who's also involved in this, kind of cut his racing teeth on the high banks of Salem Speedway, where we'll be later this year. So he feels very confident on the high banks. In fact, even talks about some passes he's made going into 3 at Salem. That's like passing anywhere here at Anderson on the outside. Can be very treacherous. And obviously Aaron involved with the doctor here.
Simonton Windows Chevrolet now, heavy right front damage. They'll have to peel away the fiberglass front end. Again, these are fiberglass bodied 9.5 to 1 V6 restricted engine cars. And let's find out more from Sandy Hang.
If you're looking at the picture right now, that yes, there is extensive fiberglass damage on the right front side. They also cut a tire there, but it looks like it could be just a little bit worse. I can't quite get in there and see. Hopefully you can see that with the camera angle. Not looking good here for the Yale Conley team.
Yale Conley locked in the battle for points as well, trying to advance here tonight with a strong run, staying out of trouble. And there's trouble there. Aaron Huff and Dave Sensiba both getting together off of turn number 2. Sensiba, excuse me, not Sensiba, but Conley getting through there, but it looks like they're going to shut it down.
Jim, it looks like Dennis Lampman might have been involved in that a little bit too. Of course, he is trying to get back through the pack after an earlier incident, so Dennis is driving very hard as well and may have been caught up in that with Aaron Huff and Dr. Yale Conley.
If you're following Joe Knott, his car remains in the pit area. Carl Muscotton also down on pit lane. Perfect night for racing here at Anderson. Come on back with us. We'll be right back. Tony Raines has been the only leader thus far, 1/10 of the way through. 40 circuits on this quarter mile have been completed in the Anderson 400 for the AC-Delco Challenge Series. Running second is pole winner Dave Sensiba. Let's take a look at Tony. Brought his wife down. His wife is from Indiana, so they have a lot of fans and friends here tonight cheering them on. Raines, now based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, has clean burn on that race car, and he wants to do nothing else than win here at Anderson to back up the dominance that Howie Leto had enjoyed in 1994 with driver Steve Holtzhausen.
Yeah, they really talk about that around the pits when they're looking for advice on who really knows the setup at Anderson. They say, you know, Howie Leto has got Anderson down. So a lot of people, a lot of the young teams going to Howie and saying, can you give us just a hint of what you do for Tony Raines?
Here's Mike Miller in the car cop Pontiac trying to hold off Ted Smokestad in the blue 32. Let's check in the pits with Tony Roper's situation. Sandy?
Well, if you notice, Tony seemed to be sliding back towards the back of the pack. His crew tells me there is nothing wrong with the car. They claim that there's a little bit of fluid on the track, that Tony got into that and lost control of the car and sunk to the back. They say the car is fine, the setup is good. Tony should be moving towards the front, they believe. Also with Carl Muscat, he developed a miss in the engine. They don't know if it's going to make it the whole race. They are certainly going to try at this point.
And Muscat running second in the rookie points. Tony Roper, who we've shown there, is running in 10th position. In the 11th is Brad Loney in the Bunsaber Pontiac. Very tight racing here. The top 7 cars have broken away there. Mike Miller running in 8th with the benefit of lap traffic now getting around Brandon Sperling. We'll try to track those guys down.
Jim, as we look at Roper circling around there in the Child's Tire Chevrolet, I had a conversation with Dean Roper, his dad. They made a very small tweak to the way they run the races. Dad said there's too much chatter on the radio. Let's be a little bit quieter and let Tony run the race. They've done that. He's had some great finishes and a great qualifying run here tonight.
He runs in 10th after that slight altercation, or slight problem, excuse me, at the outset. But his owner, John Childs, very excited about this turnaround since Berlin back in June. This is the battle for 6th position now as Scott Hansen slows, allowing Mike Eddy and Kevin Sawinski by.
It's early on yet, 400 laps, the total distance tonight. And most of the guys said, Jim, they will not really start racing until lap 300. If Hansen does not have the car to hold the position now, he's going to let Mike and Kevin get back by.
Mike Eddy, the GM Goodwrench Pontiac, suffering through one of his worst seasons in the American Speed Association running. 11th in the points, 4 DNFs. Did not finish 4 events. And has been only able to stay on lead lap 5 of the 11 races.
Jim, the report from the pits now is that Scott Hansen is a bit tight, which means that car does not want to turn when it goes into the turns, and therefore he'll wash up on the track just a little bit.
8th and 9th up for grabs once again. It's Mike Miller in the red 18. Super America Pontiac of Ted Smokestead running right behind him. And we mentioned Tony Roper qualified third. He slipped back to 10th. Now he's very competitive and racy in 10th position. 11th is Loney. 12th is Rick Beebe. In 13th is Jack Landis. Then comes Harold Fair and Bob Seneker. Seneker's all the way back in 15th, 16th spot.
He started 13th, so not a great qualifying run for Bob this weekend, and he's fallen back a couple of positions, but we've seen him come from as far down as 3 laps down, Jim, to nearly win here at Anderson. So he may just be playing the sneaker role once again.
Brandon Sperling has headed to the pits on this 56th circuit, so he got lapped a few laps ago and gets the attention of his crew as the attention now focuses on Ted Smokestead and some rubbing with Tony Roper.
Mike Miller is slower than Ted Smokestead. Ted tried to get underneath him and got pushed back just a little bit, and that gave Tony Roper a chance to get up underneath. Mike Miller's running that AFC 1000 sponsorship now. Maybe he ought to put a little anti-friction compound on the back end of his Pontiac.
Very good point, Dave Burns. He is slower than Ted Smokestead, but he's running a very conservative inside line. Smokestead will have to go high to make the pass. This is 8th, 9th. On back, and there's Brandon Sperling rejoining the battle here at the bull ring of Anderson.
Mike Miller saying, Ted, if you're going to pass me, you're going to have to do it on the outside.
Aaron
That's
Huff,
what he's going to do.
Spinning in turn 2 will bring out the 4th caution. New Palestine Drywall Supply Pontiac goes around in turn number 2. Aaron Huff lives 15 minutes away from here, and the driver very excited to run here. Career best qualifying effort of 16th. Said he's still trying to figure out these full-bodied race cars. He scored 2 wins here in 1994 in an IMCA modified style car for a USAC and IMCA event.
We're going to get a look at the replay now, and Aaron Huff apparently was involved with the leaders as we go down the front straightaway. And it looks like on the outside, it is Steve Holzhausen and Mike Eddy, and Aaron just gets a little bit loose and spins her around in turn number 1. Eddy very happy to escape without contact with Aaron Huff.
Huff pinched it down, but it looked like he got a little bit too tight down on the bottom. And Dave, the banking composition here, 18 degrees on up, but if you get that left side on the apron, that could send him as it did to Aaron Huff.
Absolutely flat down there on the apron. It looks like Aaron might have had a left side tire.
Under our 4th caution of the afternoon, the evening, as the sun has set here at Anderson, Tony Raines is your leader. Tony Raines, looking for his first victory in 1996, coming off a 2-win season a year ago, has climbed to 5th in the AC-Delco Challenge Series point standings. Dave Sensiba perched right behind him in 6th in points, right behind him on the racetrack, as we just get back to green here at Anderson Speedway. 400 circuits on this tight quarter mile. The 11th time the AC-Delco Challenge Series has visited a racetrack this season.
First time they've come to a track this size, Jim, and it's a tight one, only a quarter mile. Things happen very quickly, as we've seen already here tonight.
There's point leader Gary St. Amant, a little bit of spark there to the car, bottoming out momentarily in the turn. That is not a concern. That's just how the car is set up, a little bit soft on the right side. He runs 3rd, and 4th is Steve Holzhausen in the Payless Ford. In 5th, we see Mike Eddy now. Mike Eddy advancing. Kevin Sawinski 6th. Scott Hansen 7th. In 8th, Ted Smokestead. 9th, Tony Roper. 10th is Brad Loney. The car that we don't see in that mix is Mike Miller. He went to the pit area.
Yeah, Mike ducked into the pits. They changed left side tires on the AFC 1000 car Pontiac, and apparently it was a little bit tight. They wanted to open up the stagger a little bit on that car, so Carl Hyland brought him in early, and Mike may only have to come in for outside tires, left or right side tires later on in the race.
Changing lefts to tighten the car, to loosen the car up a little bit, and that's interesting strategy by Carl Hyland on that crew. This is the battle for 4th. 5 cars, Steve Holzhausen, black car, purple roll cage. It's a lucky charm. He's got 2 top 2 finishes, a win a week ago at Berlin Raceway in this very same car, and a 2nd place at Hawkeye Downs earlier this past July. And look at him trying to hold off Mike Eddy. Eddy goes to the inside. We see the 88 car of Eddy. Looks like he's faster at this point in the race. Steve Holzhausen trying to gather it on the backside of Gary St. Amant, but he's got a miracle of the Goodwrench Service Pontiac.
When he ducks into the turns there, and also on the side, you can see hints of purple. That's the old purple underneath of the Rice Motorsports of Rice Lake car that he had. As he tries to hold off Mike Eddy, Jim, he's got a new motor program started now with the Sterling Motor people from near Dearborn, Michigan. So this is the first run for that particular V6 Ford.
And with the points battle the way it is, Holzhausen is only 31st in points with 4 starts on the year. And Mike Eddy in 11th mathematically has a shot, but really out of contention for the win. So these guys have nothing to lose as they go to work here in front of a full grandstand at Anderson on the backstretch.
Chalk up 1 tire mark on the left side of Mr. Holzhausen's car. That won't damage the tires. It will leave a nice little donut, though, on the car as you pass it.
1 donut free of charge, Steve, as Mike Eddy now advances to 4th.
18 cars are still on the lead lap. This is the battle for 6th now. Kevin Sawinski and Scott Hansen. There's your 4th place car, Mike Eddy.
Mike Eddy continues the circle. We mentioned he's 11th in points. The driver very concerned about points. Not gathering a lot right now. Let's check in and get an update on Joe Knott with Sandy Hang.
Well, Joe Knott's team just will not quit. They refuse to let this get them. They want to get back out on the racetrack. They are fixing the suspension. They are changing it out, hoping to get any remaining laps that they can. A very dedicated team here on behalf of Joe Knott.
And Dave, we've seen 10, 11 cars finish these races, so if they can get that car back out, and there may be altercations still to come here at Anderson, it's a very exciting racetrack, as we've already seen. You think he could pick up some serious points here? He can get 10 positions if there happens to be a couple of cars that drop out.
Yeah, he definitely could, and those guys are very dedicated. Chris Bradley and the whole crew are very anxious to see Joe get out there and drive the car. They call him Racer Joe or Driver Joe sometimes to pick on him. They know his job is the racing. Their job is when that thing comes into the pits, whether it's damaged heavily like it is now or just needs new tires, their job is to get Joe back out racing.
Mike Eddy came up from 7th position now to 4th. The GM Goodwrench Service Howe Racing Enterprises Pontiac, based out of Midland, Michigan. It's 7-time series champion, goes after a driver looking for his first ASA title, Gary St. Amant, who leads the points coming in tonight.
Gary very confident on the Anderson quarter mile, likes this track very much, does not have a victory here yet, Jim. He's one of the few drivers, let's say in the elite of ASA, that have not won here at Anderson. So St. Amant would like to see a victory here tonight.
This season he has an incredible string, 10 top 10 finishes. He's finished all but 2 laps in the season. He's only been lapped twice all year long and has had a great run. Get a look at Mike Eddy here coming up for 4th. He is the barometer for short track racers. He's the standard as the American Speed Association tours the country. If a driver comes in from, say, outside the touring circuit, Mike Eddy's the man they have to beat. Mike Eddy's also the guy they go to for advice, and he gladly gives it.
Exactly. I mean, you know, people talk about Mike wins so much, and I don't want to see Mike Eddy win another race. If you were a young racer looking for a series to move up into, wouldn't you want to say, I raced against Mike Eddy, and wouldn't you love to say, I beat him?
Tony Raines beating the field right now in the Cleanburn Pontiac. He is the leader over Dave Sensiba. Gary St. Amant is in 3rd. In 4th is Mike Eddy. 5th is Steve Holzhausen. Running in 6th is Kevin Sawinski. As we look at the battle of the leaders, this is how it's been since the outset. Tony Raines jumped to the lead from outside row 1. And we see Ted Smokestead now circling alone. It looks like he's off the pace, Dave.
Down in turn number 3 now. He will go onto the flat part, the apron part of the racetrack. This happened about a lap and a half ago, and he continues to motor around. Ted's crew anxious to get him in here very quickly, but it doesn't look like he has much in the way of power right now as the leaders go by again.
Smokestead running 8th, goes to the apron in the turns. Brandon Sperling, we're happy to report, just had a tire go down, so he did lose some laps, but he's now back under full song. Same maybe the problem for Ted Smokestead. A tire does cost him a few laps.
Well, it now sounds like they might have something in the motor. The report from the pits is perhaps a valve spring, and that a very important integral part of the motor. And he ran it a few laps just to get a couple more laps in, but Jim, they won't run it for long in order to save that motor. He doesn't want to break it, and continuing to run it would certainly break the motor.
Smokestead's problems help write another chapter here at Anderson. As we look at the battle for 10th, Rick Beebe, last year's Rookie of the Year, an aspiring ASA driver. His first trip here to Anderson is a successful one thus far for the 07 of Jack Landis, the Maisto Toy Ford, right on the backside of the St. Louis Gear 23 of Beebe.
We haven't heard a lot from Jack Landis lately. He was, I think, happy to be up where they started this weekend. Look who he's got breathing down his neck. Bob Sineker moves into the picture and begins to put pressure on that young rookie. Landis dropped from 2nd in the rookie points just recently to 3rd. Carl Muscatin passed him.
That may flop with Muscatin's engine miss, and I would wonder if Jack Landis would not mind letting Sineker go to see what kind of line he should run here, where the acceleration points at. There have been plenty of opportunities to practice, including last evening for a happy hour practice, which is a rare situation in ASA, where these drivers got out to a 15-minute practice session under race conditions about the same time one night ago. Bob Seneca was one of the drivers that went out and did a lot of laps. He said he found something. He didn't qualify that great, but Seneca did come back from 13th starting spot.
And he didn't tell you what it was. Bob didn't tell you what.
Feels good. Feels good. The lead now tightens as Tony Raines in the 87 in heavy lap traffic has 4 cars on his rear bumper. Entering turn 1, already 100 circuits, 101 laps now complete, and Raines is going to have to tap dance around the high banks here at Anderson.
Tony would love to lead all 400. I know right now he wishes that Sensiba and Eddie weren't that close to him as he starts to migrate through the traffic here.
There's 5 bonus points for leading a lap, 5 points for leading the most laps. So Raines has that also to contend with. Here's the 5th place battle. Payless, Red Baron Ford of Steve Holtzhausen trying to hold off the Brown and Sharp Chevrolet of Kevin Sawinski. Sawinski again the first time here, but he's been to racetracks before for the first time and done very well, including IRP where he had a podium finish this season.
Jimmy had a lot of comparisons for this track. You mentioned a small Toledo. He called it a small Slinger as well, maybe for the banking. It's a little bit less banked than Slinger, but also a big Rockford. And we know that Kevin has had success at Rockford Speedway and Slinger Speedway in the past.
2 racetracks in Wisconsin and Illinois. Let's get an update on Ted Smokestad, who came into this race 12th in points. Sandy?
What happened is that the ignition wire caught fire. They've got water here. They've got the fire extinguisher just in case they can't get this thing fixed. You can see them scrambling around right now. They're also going to try to do a tire change while they are at it. So it's a difficult situation for Ted Smokestad and his Pontiac.
Last week, Jim, problems in the pits for Ted Smokestad. While they were coming in for a pit stop, Mike Miller was leaving, and he caught Mike Miller's car. Miller didn't see him pulling in there, and he vaulted him up into the air. Big problems last week, and now this problem.
And a problem on the racetrack as we go. Caution, is there debris up in turn number 1? It's obviously for Chevrolet. We don't know whose car exactly right now, but Dennis Lampman is riding around without the front end body work.
We know it's not Brad Loney's. He changed marks and colors this year, so it can't be his anymore.
So the 5th caution flag will fly, 109 laps complete, and we'll see if the leaders, I think the leaders may stay out there because it's only 109 laps on a tight quarter mile, plenty of fuel. Brad Loney and Mike Miller now poised to head down pit lane. They're working on Tom Jones' Zero Hero car. Under caution for a Jacques Debris up in turn number 1, a piece of a race car hanging off the outside groove, and that allowed a couple of guys to pit, including Mike Miller and this driver, Brad Loney. Let's get an update from Sandy Hang.
Well, one of the people that ducked into the pits on that last round was the 33 car of Brad Loney. They took on 2 right side tires. Ted Smokestad is also still working on his car. Carl Muscatin is also, they have a miss in the engine. And Billy Turner is back behind here. He also has a little bit of a problem. They were working on the front suspension on the left side, hoping to get that car back out of the race.
And Mike Miller looks like he's going around the pace car. He's waved on by, and he's going back down pit lane for the 2nd time under this caution. So we see the carnage already. Yale Conley, Joe Knotts, Raby Ford there sitting in the infield. The crews bring down all the equipment to the infield here at Anderson. All the trucks have to stay outside, so hopefully they have the parts they need down here on pit lane. But we've seen before a lot of crews pitching and helping each other out.
Jim, I'm going to take a stab at that debris. That was a Chevrolet nose piece, and every Chevrolet on the track except for Dennis Lampman's, and it was the wrong color, has their nose piece in there. I believe that might have been from an earlier incident, ended up inside somebody's car and then came back out. That could be a real problem before we get finished here tonight, is debris from wrecks hanging onto the cars and then causing problems later on in the race.
Pace cars pulled off. Tony Raines, the race leader since the outset. Dave Sensiba, the Lane Automotive West Michigan Chevrolet dealers. Chevrolet looking for another top 3 run. He's already had 4 this season. Green flag back out, and Raines will head back down with clean racetrack ahead of him. He had some problems with lap traffic. Worked through those as the rest of the field now follows the Milwaukee, Wisconsin driver.
You mentioned you had a lot of fans in the stands here tonight, Jim. I believe they're out on the backstretch in Section P, I am told.
So for those of you following at home, Section P is on the backstretch. The grandstands line the entire race course. The pits are behind a very tall grandstand over in turns 3 and 4. Look at this battle now. Mike Eddy not wasting any time. He now looks to the outside of Dave Sensiba. We thought the passing would happen on the inside off the turns or heading into the corners, excuse me, but now we see Mike Eddy going to the outside of the GM Gator in service. Pontiac goes to the outside of the pole sitter Sensiba.
Strong move, very strong move by Mike Eddy, especially this early in the race. car appears to be very well hooked up for Mike.
Off the pace is Rick Beebe. In the pit area is Jack Landis. So those cars suffering through some problems as the action is heating up front.
Wow, damage would seem to be taking off the cars normally, and now internal problems for, it looks like, both Rick Beebe and for Jack Landis.
On this tight quarter mile, the temperatures are extremely high inside the cockpits. The brakes are critical. And here goes Mike Eddy, not wasting any time, looking to the inside of Tony Raines. Raines has held the lead. Now he gets a tap from Eddy. The man in black, Eddy, now looking for the lead again.
Go to the outside this time. The last time, just a little tap to let him know he was there and that he's coming through. Raines will lead at the stripe. Here comes Eddy. He's still on the outside coming out of turn 2.
Muscling his way off the 18-degree banking is Mike Eddy, the new race leader. The first 122 circuits were led by Tony Raines. Now it's Mike Eddy at the point.
You know, Jim, at the beginning of the race, we talked about Holzhausen not having anything to lose. He can just be free and easy and try to win every race. And I think you compared him to, I think you compared Mike Eddy's situation just the same way. And that does not bode well for the rest of the competition.
Kevin Sawinski now sees some traction to the high side as he goes around the outside of Steve Holzhausen. This is the battle for 5th down the backstretch. Sawinski now takes it from Holzhausen. Holzhausen pushing up in the turns a bit, and now Hansen sees that Holzhausen's car is not handling perfectly. And Hansen in the Salgo McDonald Chevrolet will go around the Payless Ford of Holzhausen.
Holzhausen needs to come up with an answer, Jim, because he sets up his car to be not so good early and to come in later. It appears that tonight the car was best when he first started.
Holzhausen has drifted back to 7th. In 8th is Tony Roper. Out of the 6th is Scott Hansen. Hansen off the 4th turn there.
Roper's going to look for a way to get by. He's seen the guys go high on the outside. Holzhausen is holding that low line, but now he stays high, and Roper's really going to look, and of course they're trying to go around Aaron Huff now down on the inside.
Holzhausen in his career has 72 starts. He's run here at Anderson extremely well. He is the X factor. He's the outlaw coming in trying to steal the purse money. He now may need a pit stop sooner than you think to get this problem corrected. Holzhausen not able to keep the car down on the inside of the racetrack. Toby Noodleman and the crew will have their work cut out for them to close up that stagger to get this car back to where it was at the outset.
Yeah, Roper looks a little bit quicker right now and appears to be able to run a bit of a lower line than Steve Holzhausen can.
This is the battle for second now as Mike Eddy has moved out of the picture. You see the lead there is up to about 10 car lengths over this battle for second. Tony Raines in the even flow clean burn Pontiac holding off Dave Sensiba. These two guys shared the front row at the start, both eclipsing the track record set a year ago. Wow, look at this battle for 5th, Dave. St. Amant with a mirror full of Kevin Sawinski, the rookie, getting real comfortable in a hurry here.
Remember, Sawinski got moved out of the groove a little bit earlier, lost a couple of positions, and he swings in back up to second. Here comes Sensiba on the outside. He will take the position from Tony Raines.
Raines had to brake early into turn 1, yielding the spot, and now it's Dave Sensiba in pursuit of Mike Eddy, the race leader. AC-Delco Challenge Series action on Prime, live from Anderson Speedway in Anderson, Indiana, near Indianapolis. This is the actual home of the American Speed Association, the 30th running of the Anderson 400. It's heating up to be a classic as we see St. Amant there holding off Kevin Sawinski, one of the up-and-comers. The 1995 Artco champion now looks to the outside of St. Amant briefly. St. Amant in the wins. Burke transfer Ford has closed the gap on Tony Raines. 3rd, 4th, and 5th here through turns 1 and 2.
Down the backstretch, they will drift high and then point the noses back in toward the bottom groove. Bottom is fast here, and they'll drift up to the high side as they in the turns, and they'll drift up to the high side on each short straightaway.
St. Amant extremely high there, maybe going into the corner a little deeper than he would have liked to, but Sawinski not able to capitalize. Again off the corner, St. Amant comes off high, and Sawinski takes a peek. Coleman Racing Products Chevrolet of Sawinski working extremely well on the bottom. He has yet to pit along with the other two drivers he's running with. 138 circuits in. We see Raines drifting up. We see St. Amant drifting up, and now Sawinski is reeling them in a hurry, staying on the bottom groove.
Jim, we saw one of the only cars to really pit out of sync was Brad Loney in the Bun Saber Pontiac. He is back on the track and moving up toward the top 10. As you mentioned, most of the leaders have stayed out since the outset.
And Gary St. Amant, who comes into this race with the point lead, told me yesterday that he's very cautiously optimistic. Yeah, he has the point lead, but he loves to race here at Anderson. We're in the middle of this stretch run, and he said, you know what, I love to race to win here at Anderson, but I might have to take it back a notch to run strong for the overall big picture. But you can see he's very, very concerned here with Kevin Sawinski. St. Amant trying to gain position towards the championship. Now
Tony Raines falling off the pace. Raines is down on the inside and slow, and he's going to try to make his way around to the pits. He'll have to go all the way back around and enter the pits toward turn number 2. He's just now coasting into turn number 3, and they're not moving very fast in his pits. Tony may have a terminal problem.
There's Crew Chief Howie Leto looking the situation over, talking to his driver, counseling him in on what to do.
Wow. Unbelievable, Jim, after starting on the outside of the front row, and Tony did look stout tonight.
Led the first 122 laps of this 400-lap contest. The marathon may end early here as Raines slowly heads to his pit. Let's go down to Sandy Hang.
Well, I tell you what, this car is walking wounded as it slugs in here. It's not looking good. It may be something with the engine. Howie is getting underneath right now, trying to figure out what's wrong. They've just cut the car right here in the pits. Not looking good here for Tony Raines.
Well, they're going to go underneath there, Jim. They're losing valuable track time, and unfortunately, this doesn't look like one of those situations where they'll work on it and get Tony back out to pick up some more laps.
Mike Eddy, the race leader, took it from Tony Raines in the outside pass. He's now working through and trying to catch up to Harold Fair and put him a lap down. It's the battle with Bob Seneker and Brad Loney for 8th. Heading up into turn number 1, Loney now reeling him in. Loney did spend time on pit lane. He has a tire change and fresher rubber than Seneker. He now closing in quickly, and he goes right to the bottom of Seneker there. The JR Automation mechanics where Ford has to stay high, and here comes Loney in that blue Pontiac.
Pinsino in front of him now, and he will use that as a pick. Bob Seneker moved to the high side. Brad Loney had no choice but to follow him around the outside of Alec Pinsino.
8th and 9th up for grabs there, and right now it's Seneker's, but we'll see if the Flex Steel Pontiac can flex its muscle and put Brad Loney around. The Cedar Rapids, Iowa driver, following the winningest driver in the American Speed Association around a track that he used to avoid with a plague. He didn't start running here until 1979. His first win came in '81. Mike Eddy already had 8 races in by that time.
My goodness.
Speedway.
And he's still great at it. Just shows you the kind of gift that Bob Seneker, along with several other drivers that come to mind, of driving that he has to be able to pick up a place like this. And I don't know, kind of half enjoy it now maybe.
He's in 8th and 9th is Brad Loney. 6 top 10 finishes on the year. Looking for his first victory.
And with that early pit stop, Jim, the Bun Saber crew hopes to be able to stay out when everybody else pits and assume the lead, or perhaps they'll come in and put on another set of tires. And but right now, Loney is pretty quick. Down to the inside, Seneker locks up the brakes just a bit. Loney will force his way through coming out of turn number 4. Look at the black mark that is left on the right side of that car. But Brad Loney says, I've got the position.
And a spin by Bill Baird in the Saturn Machine Chevrolet. The Sturgeon, Kentucky driver loops it in turn 4. Carl Muscatton is stopped on the apron. But Bill Baird, a quick spin off of turn number 4. 6 yellows have flown over the field, and his car undamaged, but it did spin around. You see some damage in the right rear there of his Chevy Monte Carlo.
Bill was running in the lead lap, and he may have been chasing to try to stay out in front of the leaders as they were coming around.
Unofficially 13th in the running, as we see now the 23 of Rick Beebe scooting by. And it looks like the leaders are coming down pit lane. Mike Eddy will lead the charge into the pit area. A very unique X-shaped pit situation. The top 12 cars got to draw their positions. They all picked the turn 1 and 2 half of pit lane. Down there to cover it for us will be Sandy Hang in just moments, but it looks like wholesale pit stops for the leaders.
This will be the one pit stop they make, Jim, I almost guarantee you.
Lap 157, Mike Eddy's in for right side tires. Let's go down to Sandy Hang and Dave Sensiba's pit, who's running in 2nd.
Well, right now you're looking at Dave Sensiba's crew putting on 2 right side tires. Most of the teams here today are strategizing. They just want one pit stop. This is the critical pit stop for all of them. Timing is important. Mike Eddy gets out of the pits first, followed by Kevin Sawinski. Timing is important here. Dave Sensiba's got to get out of here to stay on the lead lap. I don't know if he's going to make it here.
They changed left sides on Dave Sensiba. Scott Hansen, Bob Seneker also coming down pit lane. And Mike Eddy, the first car out in a very tight situation. 158 circuits are in. Under the lights at Anderson Speedway. Welcome to coverage here on Prime. Anderson, Indiana, beautiful night for racing, 74 degrees the temperature. We see Brad Loney now pacing the field here. Under our 6th caution of the evening, Loney is the leader. In second is Mike Miller. And here's why we're under our 6th caution. Bill Baird off of turn number 4. Looks like he just got around there. You see the transition off the banking did not help Baird as he tried to correct the car.
And if you look right behind where Baird is spinning, we surmised earlier that maybe he was trying to stay out ahead of the leaders. And Mike Eddy's going to squeak by. Didn't quite see it, but Mike Eddy drove by right after that.
Aaron Huff and Brandon Sperling directly ahead of him as he tried to put that Saturn machine car off of turn number 4 in the right direction and got away from him. Brad Loney's your race leader. Mike Miller is second. After pit stops, Mike Eddy now positioned in third. Sawinski and Hansen round out the top 5 here at Anderson. Technical Director John Janik for ASA looking the track over. It now reported there's been oil on the surface, so Baird lit him up off of turn 4. Unofficially, there is oil on the racetrack, potentially from Tony Roper's car. Now they're saying Gary St. Amant might have a fluid leak. Let's check in the pits with Sandy Hang.
Well, I'm here with Tony Roper. He was just telling me some of that fluid on the track might be here. His rear end looks shot. Tony, you were so fast today. You were pressuring Seneca. It was looking good.
The car was fantastic, just fantastic. At the start of the race, I think the 7 car may have overfilled their oil tank or had something wrong with the rear end. And man, I'm glad I was up front with the gray drivers, because when I went into one, it slid up and it could have been a big wreck. But, you know, we hate it for the Child Star Chevrolet. The guys worked real hard, and man, we had a good race car. I think we had a chance to win this thing. Track position would have been important for us. But man, I hate this. I hate to go out. We're going to try to go out and get points because we're 10th in points. But hey, we'll get them next week in Milwaukee. We're gonna be fast there too.
Jim, they talked in the drivers' meeting prior to the race tonight about things that happen here at Anderson. And one of them, they said, tighten down those rear ends. They don't know why. Maybe it's just a vibration. Maybe it's the high banks. Maybe it's all the times that you stuff a guy going into the turns here. But the rear ends always seem to loosen up. And apparently that's what happened on Tony's, dropping some oil on the track starting in turns 3 and 4.
And because of the banking, some of the crew chiefs have moved over the fuel pickup to the outside of the race car because the fuel is pushed up to the right side or outside of the fuel tank. So they have other concerns here for the high banks. Speaking of points, here is Joe Knott struggling and racing for some points. Unofficially 24th in the rundown as we have it. Well back after he spent multiple laps in the pit area. Came into this race 3rd in points, just 5 better than Bob Seneker. 119 laps down is now Joe Knott. The Lima, Ohio driver will have to wait another day to score a victory in ASA.
And Jim, Tom Jones is back on the track. He's 164 laps down, and they're still out there plugging.
They got the welder working on the 0 cars. We're back to green. Harold Fair just ahead of the leaders on the tail end of lead lap.
And Harold trying to stay out there. In fact, that's right. We're not showing him as the leader, but Harold is a former winner here, Jim. It's got to be disappointing if you've won here before. You know you can be fast, and yet you're just trying to hang on to the end of the lead lap.
33, Brad Loney is the race leader. Let's check back in his pit with Sandy Hang.
Well, this is all strategy for Brad Loney's team. They did not want to pit until at least lap 200. This is a position move. They're hoping it will pay off for them later in the race.
He did pit on lap 109, so 1/4 of the way through they made their left side change, and it may only be one more stop for this Bun Saber Pontiac team. Mike Miller now pressuring the car cop Pontiac, AFC 1000 on the hood for the season, as they try to work around Harold Fair in the CarQuest Pontiac. Fair again trying to stay on lead lap. Michigan veteran here working hard, trying to stay ahead of Loney. Here's the battle for 8th now. These drivers made pit stops in Sensible trying to work his way back through, as is Gary St. Amant. St. Amant in that black and orange 7, sponsored by Wins.
Thing to watch now is who was better at guessing what size of tires to put on the cars. They measure it by fractions of inches, but it makes a big difference. And Sensible looks pretty strong. Gary St. Amant caught up in traffic. He was pressuring just a couple of minutes ago.
The leader is Brad Loney, but now second is back in the hands of Mike Eddy again, passing on the outside, bringing with him the fast-learning student of Kevin Sawinski. Sawinski going to class and getting a graduate degree at the end of this one if he stays on the backside of Mike Eddy. Trouble in turns 1 and 2 for Brett Bell in the Wonder Bar Ford. 7 caution flags now fly as Bell is stuck outside the racetrack on the upper portion of this 18-degree banking in turn 1. Bell swapped ends, stayed off the wall, but got together with a car going into the first turn here.
Car looks a little bit battle weary already. Got on the right side there some nice Goodyear Racing donuts on the side of his Wonder Bar Ford Thunderbird.
And the pace car now goes around the outside of that Ford. That team now based in Pittsburgh, Indiana. The former Jeff Gordon racing shops when he was racing sprint cars out of the Midwest.
Mike Eddy going to pit. And this would be for the second time. Maybe going for that 4 fresh strategy. We'll see if Mike will put on left sides. They put on right sides the first time. And it looks like Gary St. Amant and Scott Hansen are going to follow him in. And Mike Miller, who had been dropping back, is right behind them. So he's going to take advantage of this opportunity.
These drivers all taking advantage of quick cautions. 22 laps apart, so Mike Eddy will have 4 fresh tires. And speaking of the fresh comparison there, Dave, again, trying to get these cars 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. These are bias ply tires. Stagger is very much a concern, unlike the radial tire where size is so important. They play with pressures, they play with size. Mike Eddy now down in the pits, as is St. Amant, Hansen, Mike Miller. Let's go down to Sandy Hang.
Well, you're right here. You can see them working on Eddie's left side. They are putting on 2 left side tires. Right across from him is Gary St. Amant. They are putting on 2 left side tires on him as well as adjusting the stagger on St. Amant. He appears to be, he's out first. He's going to beat Eddie out of the pits.
Well, Jim, if your car falls out and your pit stall is near another competitor, what do you do? If you're Tony Roper, you jump out there and you help out. That was Tony Roper wiping away the debris on the front of Mike Eddy's grill.
Gary St. Amant has led those 4 cars out of the pit area. Lap 179, the leader, Brad Loney. In second is Kevin Sawinski. Bob Seneker sneaking up in third. We'll be right back from Anderson. Under Roger Slack's green flag, we're back to action on lap 182. And Brad Loney is the race leader. Kevin Sawinski, who has pitted on lap 157. He likes to stay out behind the race leader. We'll see if Sawinski in the Brown and Sharp Chevrolet can measure up. The Bunsaver Pontiac heading into turn number 3 now.
Whoa.
Loney goes high.
Whoa. Big problems for Brad Loney. Big day-ending problems. He is stopped.
Loney was leading at Toledo Speedway. He led the race until he pitted. Now after a pit stop, Loney has problems again on a restart, and the Bunsaver Pontiac up in smoke in turn 1.
Jim, on the restart, he got very loose coming off of turn number 4. I don't know if that was an indication of what was about to happen, but Kevin Sawinski tried to go high around him, and then he dropped down low, and we're going to take a look at him slowing down coming out of turn number 4. Here they go into turn number 3.
Initially, we thought Loney was protecting the line, but look how high up he drifts there, and all of a sudden you see the white stuff fill in the windshield there.
Wow.
The second close call of the season for Sawinski. He and Steve Holtzhausen got together at Cedar Rapids running 1 and 2, and Sawinski ended up skying off of Holtzhausen, so deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say, for Sawinski, but this time looks a lot better off coming off of that one. Sawinski now leads for the 5th time in 1996, his rookie season in the American Speed Association competition. Very impressive run.
And I got to give a call to our man Torch, who was the first one to point out that Brad Loney's 36 race ASA leading no did not finishes started after the race at Anderson back in 1994. This place is not good for Brad Loney.
That is an ASA record, and trying to record his second win here is Mike Eddy. The second and only time he may see victory lane will be tonight at Anderson. This is his 26th start at Anderson. Yeah, he's had a lot of great runs, but he's now looking for his first win. Right behind him is the driver who gets it done. Scott Hansen won this race in 1993, sans the hood on his Chevy Lumina. Right now, all things clicking for Hansen as he came in the pits with Eddy just a few laps ago. They are now chasing down Gary St. Amant. They both pitted with St. Amant, as did Mike Miller, who's not able to keep pace here with these 3 guys who are ripping their way through the field at Anderson.
Very fast pace here. You can see they put Rick Beebe another lap down. They're about to go around Bill Baird and Jack Landis just up ahead of him. Here's St. Amant and Eddy going down into turn number 1, keeping that low line going, only drifting high when they need to get around some of the slower traffic.
Kevin Sawinski's the leader as this action continues now. Bill Baird running strong on lead lap, trying to stay ahead of these guys who are on a lot fresher tires, and boy, are they coming hard on the backside of Baird.
Eddy taking the position now, trying to take the position as St. Amant went high to get around Baird. Baird very difficult to get around, and Mike Eddy stuck the nose down there. Scott Hansen's going to take the same line and try it.
Here comes Gary St. Amant again. He tried to get Baird loose, it didn't work, and now he may again have the advantage on the outside. St. Amant unable to hold it right next to Bill Baird, though, off of turn 4. The drag race down into turn number 1, and it will be St. Amant clearing Bill Baird first.
I don't think Gary's car is working extremely well on the high side, Jim. Looks like he has to try really hard when he's driving up that high. On the other hand, Bill isn't exactly holding the low line.
Well, the record string has snapped for Brad Loney, his second DNF at Anderson, coming 2 years after his first and only DNF since joining the ASA series. And let's check in with his dejected interview with Sandy Haig.
Well, Brad, right there, it looked like smoke filled the cockpit. What happened?
Well, I think we had an electrical fire. The guys on this Fun Saver Flex Steel Furniture H&W Motor Express team did a fantastic job. You know, Pontiac's given us a great car. Howell Racing Enterprises is a fantastic chassis. We're up front, and, you know, I was hoping we could ride there for a little while and just wait and see what unfolded for the rest of the race, but unfortunately it's not going to be our night. You know, we'll come back and we'll get them in Milwaukee next week.
For a little bit there, you were going back and forth with Eddie. Did the car just look great?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything.
You were going back and forth with Eddie, and you think you really had a shot at this, didn't you?
Oh, I'm sure we'd have had something for him, but it's like I said, it's not going to be our night. The guys did a great job giving me a good car, and you know, I got to pat them on the back and thank my sponsors for letting me be here, so thanks.
As Brad Loney will have an excellent seat in the infield, we continue to march through the progress of, it looks like the 88 now. Mike Eddy is slowing just a bit. He was on a charge behind Gary St. Amant. St. Amant able to hold him off 5th and 6th spots now as we're live at Anderson Speedway near Indianapolis for the 30th running of the Weidner Chevrolet Anderson 400. Kevin Sawinski is your race leader there in the black and yellow number 1, but here comes Bob Seneker. Seneker was 3rd on the restart. He now climbs to within 5 car lengths now of the race leader. So it's Sawinski, Seneker, Holtzhausen. The pole winner Sensiba runs 4th. Back with the leaders, Kevin Sawinski leads this field down into turn number 1, trying to put a lap on Harold Fair, who's already 1 lap down to the leaders in the AC-Delco number 81. Sawinski now picking his line through, and Bob Seneca runs at 2nd. Sawinski, the leader, spent about 6 hours, it seems like, over the weekend at the go-kart track. I talked to him and I talked to his crew guys, and they said, hey, we went go-karting last night. You want to go tonight? And that was Thursday. And they went again, I think, this morning.
Hey, seat time is seat time, huh? And those go-kart tracks, hey, they're not much big or not much smaller than the Anderson Speedway here. If you've just joined us, we're on a 1/4-mile high bank speedway in Anderson, Indiana, and it is fun to watch. 400 laps tonight.
5th place up for grabs here as St. Amant is trying to lead Mike Eddy through traffic. Eddy now looking for a place to pass. Eddy running in 6th position. I may have misspoken earlier. I thought he was dropping off a bit. I think he was just resting his arms, as it's a constant battle here at Anderson. High bank, high pressure, a lot of G-forces through the turns on the 18-degree banking. Eddy laying back, now closing back in again on St. Amant. The Ohio driver looking for his first ASA championship. Mike Eddy has 7 under his belt. Doesn't look like he'll do it here in 96, but St. Amant wants to win this race. Eddy again thinks nothing else but championship for the rest of these 9 races yet to run this season. St. Amant running in 7th, Mike Eddy 8th, Scott Hansen is 9th. The driver not on the circuit currently is standing by with Sandy Haig.
So Rick Beebe, tonight was just not your night. Your car looks like it's done for the race. What happened?
Well, I'll tell you, the Hodges Motorsports McGuire Morgan Chevrolet was running real good. The guys did a good job on it. We had a decent qualifying effort, and running 7th or 8th and had a flat tire under the green and put us down a couple laps. We were still running good. And,
looks like we've got a spin here. I'll toss it back up to the booth.
Problem with Ted Smokestad and Tom Jones getting involved in turn number 3, and again, problems for Rick Beebe. Unfortunately for him, the St. Louis Gear Inside Challenge Chevrolet is done for the night. Super America Pontiac of Smokestad now to get righted. He spent a number of laps in the pits with the hood up. His brother Craig Smokestad, the crew chief, and the entire Minnesota-based team going to work there, and their work is not done yet as Smokestad and Tom Jones spun in turn 3, bringing out the caution. Billy Turner allows him through, and there's your race leader, Kevin Sawinski. Dave Sensiba and Mike Miller again trying to tweak those cars. Could be the last stop for Sensiba as they head to pit lane. Under the 8th caution here at Anderson Speedway, the amber lights remain illuminated for a spin involving Ted Smokestad and Tom Jones over in turn 3. That allowed Dave Sensiba, Steve Holtzhausen, Mike Miller, Jack Landis to come down pit lane, and there are 9 cars that remain on lead lap. Harold Fair is only 2 laps off the pace in 11th. He now comes down pit lane as Billy Turner has also come to the pit lane, and apparently now it's shown that Harold Fair is only 1 lap down. We mentioned how tight these pits are. I think these drivers that just pitted may be done for the night if they can help it. They have fresh rubber on both sides of the car. Dave Sensiba, the pole sitter, only coming in twice down pit lane, just completed his pit stop. 223 laps are in a 400. And we're going to get back at it here with Kevin Sawinski. A great jump on the restart. Well, lead Bob Senecker, Gary St. Amant down into turn 1. And Harold Fair, right in front of the leaders, comes out of the pits and spins it in the first turn.
Jim, I don't believe Harold had any service done to the CarQuest AC-Delco Pontiac when he was in the pits. He realized they were going to go back to green. Very quickly came out of his pit exit in turn number 3 and was only about a straightaway ahead of the leaders, so he was really barreling it down into turn number 1. It looks like he just lost it.
Hats off to the spotters positioned right here in turn number 1, and as Harold Fair spun, I would think all the radio keys went down and said spin in turn 1, stay low. And look at this, it's a quick caution, but it's going to keep Steve Holtzhausen up behind the pace car. It looks like Holtzhausen does not like what he just changed on the car. They might make an adjustment. This is not considered the same caution, so he may be able to change tires again here. We did go back to green before getting back to the caution.
Yeah, but they take the green, they're able to come back in once again, and we talk about it not being possible to get 4 fresh tires in ASA because they only allow them to do 2 per pit stop, and that can be 2 fronts, 2 rears, or 2 right or left sides. And we'll see what side of the car Toby Noodleman and the boys go to for Holtzhausen.
And Steve Holtzhausen and Dennis Lampman both look like you're coming down pit lane. Now look at Lampman's car. It's severely damaged. He's still on lead lap. Here comes Steve Holtzhausen down in the pits, and Sandy Hang is standing by.
Well, just before this pit stop, I was talking to a crew, and the crew says the car is just tight, tight, tight. You can't get the car to turn. This Steve has just been complaining all night about it. As you can see, they are putting on a new right side front, trying to remedy that situation. He's back down and away.
Right front change, Joe Beamish on the tire there. Change by Chris Spaulding and the crew for Dennis Lampman. They peel off the other fender as that Barricade Flasher team goes to work. Racing Electronics also helping this team out. See Lonnie Klinger also ripping the things away there. There's Lisa Dickinson to Gary Clem, our director. Sign posting it here at the racetrack. Just back to green, Kevin Sawinski again, a 5 to 7 car length jump on Bob Senecker coming off the restart. 232 circuits in, and we now see Senecker trying to hold off Gary St. Amant. St. Amant has pitted, so has Mike Eddy since Bob Senecker visited pit lane. They're now trying to advance on the Bluebird. Lane Automotive Ford now holding off St. Amant, but St. Amant will go to the outside. Mike Eddy started passing on the outside. Now St. Amant will use that maneuver to pull even with Senecker.
Gary really goes high still, Jim, when he's on the outside there. I think that pressure by Eddy is forcing Gary to go to a spot he doesn't want to, and he's having a little trouble getting around Bob. They come together.
They tap for the second time in a single lap, and you see St. Amant washing up a bit in turns 3 and 4, able to get back on the gas power, use that Ford horsepower in his V6. Mike Eddy now also comes along. They now advance into 2nd and 3rd. Race leader Kevin Sawinski there leads them by 10 car lengths, and now Mike Eddy does not look content with 3rd for the time being.
Yeah, watch Mike. When Gary goes up like that, here he goes. He's going to go right underneath there and try to take that position, but Gary's pretty strong on the high side there. We've seen him run on the outside before, but I don't think that's what he's intending to do tonight. I just think the car will not stick low for him right now.
And the car is dragging again. A little bit of spark off of there, and we see that's the battle for 2nd now, and Eddy will take it in a big crash over in turn 4.
Oh, man.
Aaron Huff's involved. Carl Muscotton right in front of the leader, and there's the 93 of Alec Pinsino now just getting underway. That black car there, there's Aaron Huff.
Pinsino was having a pretty good run, Jim. We had him just outside the top 10, only about 4 or 5 laps down.
The Windsor, Ontario driver got in on a provisional. He was on the C program provisional, was allowed 1 per season, and he took it here at this event because he was able to use the provisional 1 race this season. He decided to start at the rear of the field tonight, and he now had a great run cut short. The crew going to work there, a car prepared by Harold Fair and his staff, including his son, Harold Fair Jr., the crew chief. Aaron Huff now goes down pit lane, and there's the leaders looking like they want to go in pit lane. Lap 239, and it looks like the 1 of Kevin Sawinski will lead the leaders down. And again, Mike Eddy comes back in the pits.
Fine-tuning, Jim, fine-tuning.
The opportunity under all these cautions has allowed Bob Senator to come back in the pits. Down there is Sandy Hang.
Well, Bob Seneker is putting on 2 right side tires. Mike Eddy is also in the pits. Seneker is away. Eddy is away. Also, a curious thing about Steve Holtzhausen, the last time he came in, he took on 1 left front tire, one right front tire. Kind of curious situation because the time before they took on 2 rear tires, they just wanted to correct the tight situation, so a very unusual situation for him. So several cars taking advantage of this yellow flag.
Jim, Seneker and the crew did not win the battle coming out of the pit lane, but it was a very quick stop, and we saw last night the crew did win the pit stop contest here, the annual event here at Anderson Speedway. They had a pit stop under 12 seconds to change 2 right side tires and to simulate the loading of fuel on there. Took home $1,000 and a lot of accolades for winning that last night. John DeCook and the crew sending Bob out real quickly again this time.
Let's take a look at what happened again. Sawinski is behind what is almost a blocked racetrack at turn number 4. And we see now Aaron Huff goes around with help from Brandon Sperling in the 15. To the inside goes Lappman, and that's Sperling jumping off of him. And Muscatine goes to the inside. There's Pinsino. Out of the way is Billy Turner. And
was that Holzhausen in there?
It was pretty scary there. Gary St. Amant now the leader, as Kevin Sawinski, the leader to this point, made a pit stop. The 5th different leader in the evening. St. Amant going after his first win at Anderson Speedway. Scott Hansen trying to thwart that effort in that white 53, sponsored by Wisconsin Aviation and Metro Milwaukee Auto Auction. 1st and 2nd on the racetrack, 1st and 2nd in the point chase. The wins forward of Gary St. Amant leading the Bowtie Brigade, led by Scott Hansen. Ford comes into this race with a 7-point manufacturer's championship bulge. And look at the move by Hansen. St. Amant again unable to hold the bottom. Mike Eddy passed him a few laps before our last caution. Hansen will do the same to the inside and become the 6th leader on the evening.
Hansen washing up a little bit as well, but I don't think his problem is as severe as Gary St. Amant's. And Jim, I'm really wondering if they've got a problem in the 7 wins car, or if Gary's just running where he can.
When he goes into the turns, he brakes and turns hard left. This is the battle for 4th. Again, Dennis Lammett is on lead lap, and here comes Steve Holtzhausen, narrowly missing that last wreck. And Lampman not able to give up the spot just yet. He's still running the outside groove, but Holtzhausen with 4 fenders and that fresh right front tire goes to the inside of Lampman and spins. Steve Holtzhausen unable to hold it down in the bottom, and very uncharacteristically at a track he's done extremely well at. Steve Holtzhausen spins off of turn number 4. He stays on lead lap but lost a lot of track time, and we'll have to see if he flat spotted those tires. I don't think he planned on coming in again, but the tire strategy might have gone out the window as Holtzhausen in the Payless Red Baron Pizza Ford brings out the 10th caution this evening.
Jim, Dennis Lampman, who was running in 4th and holding off Steve Holtzhausen, told me that he was kind of mad that I didn't interview him in the pits the last couple of races when he dropped out. I think Dennis would much rather we talk about him running up in 4th place here at the Anderson 400.
The 11th caution in the afternoon, and we'll see what happened here as we had the battle for you live on Prime going down the backstretch. Holtzhausen trying to gather 4th. Had what would be the preferred line, but as he went in the turn, Lampman gave him plenty of room, and Holtzhausen flat out went in too hard. Didn't want to get into Lampman and ended up turning hard left and got the car loose.
I didn't see the brakes lock up on the front there, Jim, but maybe they're biased just a little bit too much on the front end and caused the back just to slip out there. Boy, that's weird.
Holtzhausen giving all 4 sides of his race car some TV time as he goes spinning into turn 3 infield. And boy, what a great job by Lampman here to stay on course. And Holtzhausen saved it, but I don't know. He came in the pits this time by on caution. Let's check back down on pit lane with Sandy Hang.
Bob Seneker just ducked in, some body damage in the rear. They also changed a couple of tires. You know, earlier we were talking about Gary St. Amant. Didn't know if he was hanging on. I talked to his crew chief and members of his crew. They say Gary St. Amant's car is just fine. He's just hanging in there.
Well, Bob Seneker trying to fine-tune it. The Bluebird back out at the rear of the tail, and the JR Automation, Lane Automotive Ford, looking for some major sponsorship. Looking for his 83rd career win. Hansen has the point at this point. 149 laps to go on the Anderson 400. And as you join us, a big spin over in turns 3 and 4, collecting Harold Fair, Steve Holtzhausen, and Mike Miller. Holtzhausen and Miller just made pit stops under this latest caution, and they did stay on lead lap to this point, but it looks like there's more than just superficial damage on Holtzhausen's car as he's throwing the belts off now. Harold Fair unbuckling as well in the CarQuest Auto Parts Pontiac.
Fluids running down the racetrack there. That's a real problem here. They didn't put the VHT on the track this year. They have a softer Goodyear tire, but none of the sticky stuff down here on the Anderson Speedway, so anything that upsets the traction here is a real problem.
And as the water flows from the front end of the Red Baron Payless Ford for Steve Holtzhausen, Mike Miller circles around the Speedway with front end damage as well. There's the Car Cop ADT Pontiac, and again, this is just after pit stop, so they came out at the very back of the field. On the restart here, Carl Muscott to the inside of Holtzhausen. As they go into turn number 3, Harold Fair has spun and boom, nose to nose.
Kiss of death right
Absolutely
there.
Nowhere to go for either of those drivers, Holtzhausen or Mike Miller.
Payless Foods coming on the hood and the quarter panel there for Steve Holtzhausen. They're a market here in the Anderson area, very prevalent in open wheel competition. Glad to see the Payless folks on the hood of a Fender car here in
And it's a
ASA.
festival atmosphere in Anderson. They had a golf outing this past Friday that we kind of hacked our way through to play even, Dave, along with
very poor
Aaron Thorson, our spotter, and John Petrie, who's very involved with this broadcast each and every time we see it on television. John is the man. We had a little fun playing golf, but the festival atmosphere was capped off today by a parade. And in the parade, the Payless food stores, I think, had the world's largest high-powered, blown motor shopping cart. The thing was 20 feet in the air. The driver was sitting where the kid does, but he was only about 1/5 the width of this huge shopping cart that Payless brought out for the parade this afternoon. Big old meats on the back. It sounded really good. He might have been able to give these guys a run for their money, but I think he might have too much top weight. It looked exactly like a metal shopping cart, but it was about 17 times the size.
I'm wondering what kind of a gear you'd run in that, too. It's definitely a big track kind of cart, I think.
Part of the festivities here at Hoosier Park earlier today, they had a breakfast for all the drivers and teams, and Joe Knott was fittingly awarded the honorary racemate banner that Brad Loney and Gary St. Amant have carried, and he was about to take that little ribbon off. It said honorary racemate. When he left the breakfast this morning, he said, no, you have to wear that through the parade, Joe. You're the honorary racemate. We needed to let people know that. And he had it on as he sat on the back of his car through the parade being towed by those wheel horse tractors.
Well, our honorary racemate is over 100 laps down. Joe Knott having problems early. Running third in the points. He's going to drop a bit here this evening. There's a look at your first 2 points runners. Scott Hansen in second in the points, now leading the race, and Gary St. Amant, the points leader, and they're just a few markers apart now.
It's a couple more laps where they get the oil dry down there, and we see Tony Raines is strapped back in, and Mike Miller has come through the pits a couple of times. There's your leaders, and there's the crowd enjoying a great race here at Anderson. Stick around, it's not over yet. Hansen leads them. Roger Slack, the official starter for the American Speed Association, looking over the cars, and now he's pointing to Dennis Lampman's number 9. Lampman doing a great job staying on lead lap, maybe dropping some fluid. We're under caution because there has been unofficially reports of some oil on the racetrack. So now Lampman being told via headset to his spotter, they're now telling the crew to bring that number 9 barricade flasher Racing Electronics Chevrolet down pit lane. Yeah, that is a Chevrolet. You couldn't tell until you saw the bow tie in the back, because Dennis was involved in a couple of incidents, including a lap 2 crash over in turn number 1. He's maintained his lead lap position, and now Dave Sensiba down in the pits.
Jim, they just pulled in that Lane Automotive Chevrolet, and I don't think the Western Michigan Chevy dealers are going to be real happy, because that car is not under power at all.
Our pole winner, Dave Sensiba, shaking his head in disgust as he was running in the top 6, in contention for the win now. 145 circuits to go, and Sensiba, running 6th in points, was running 3rd when he slowly brought his car down pit lane under this 12th caution.
I can't believe that the things that are happening inside these cars, Jim. Usually it's accidents that take the cars out here tonight. We've had a lot of cars with mechanical difficulties, including Rick Beebe and Brad Loney and Tony Roper and now Dave Sensiba.
And we know that Tony Raines has rejoined the chase. Joe Knott is over 100 laps down. These guys are going for points, and it is truly a battle of attrition. And you can see this is in turn number 1. This is high above the first turn. Great chem work by Dave Miller and the guys over there. And looking at how things are going, this is what the spotters see on the racetrack. So they have all the action right in front of them. We had a crash. Harold Fair spun right in front of the leaders in turn 1. That was not a problem. The farthest point for the spotters on the racetrack is turn 3, but it's in plain view. It's a very high-banked racetrack, but the stands are right on top of the racetrack. Great for the race fans here. Let's check in on pit lane where things continue to be busy with Sandy Hang.
Well, I was just talking with Dave Sensiba's car owner, Bud Gavin. He says they blew a gasket. Just a tough situation for these guys. They have wanted a win so badly this year. They've been trying, working hard to get Dave in victory lane, and it's a tough break for Dave Sensiba's team.
And again, working on the rear end, and the oil dry continues to be laid out on the racetrack. So maybe Sensiba is one of those cars that was leaking fluid. He came down to pit lane. Dennis Latma did come in the pits and headed back out.
Roger Slack waving him through there, and they put a lot of oil dry down on the track. It's going to be dusty here in the first few laps when they throw the green again.
And again, it's going to be very slippery. The oil dry is there to absorb the fluid because these cars do not run groove tires. It's very hard to get traction on anything but a flat, dry pavement surface, and that will be that won't be the case for their first couple races, or first couple laps, excuse me, as they try to get the entire groove there. We've seen 2 lines of oil now being dampened around the racetrack. That is where the oil dry has been put down. Here's where we're going next. We're going to the Milwaukee Mile as the American Speed Association tours the country. Stop at the Milwaukee Mile ticket office. Tickets are still available for this Sunday's running of the Badgerland 150. Then it's off to the Minnesota State Fair on Labor Day Monday, the final day of the fair. Enjoy a corn dog. Head down Grandstand Avenue there and check out the great racing at the Minnesota State Fair. The drivers will be joined by Mark Martin and Kenny Schrader for that race on Monday, Labor Day, September 2nd. Then it's off to Kaukauna, Wisconsin, where Tony Raines won the race a year ago. Wisconsin International Raceway, home of the Green Bay Packers, is less than an hour away there. And the Hawkeye Downs Speedway in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a return to that facility, a track that we're going to see some local stars shine, including Johnny Spaw. We'll see if Bob Seneca can back up his 2 wins a year ago at Hawkeye Downs. Then it's off to Toledo Speedway, as we're only 11 races into the season, a lot to go yet for these ASA teams. Salem Speedway, the High Banks, on October 6th. Then it's off to Jennerstown Speedway, October 13th for a 400-lap contest, and that really will set up the championship day at Kenly, North Carolina. Southern National Speedway, I believe Scott Hansen is the only driver with race experience at that 4/10 mile in North Carolina.
It's really going to test these professional racers as they go to a place they've never seen before to settle the championship here in 1996.
Let's get an update from the pit area where the dust is settling with Sandy Hang.
Well, a couple of little stories that are going on right now. Scott Hansen's crew, it's a poker game. They do want to come in for another pit stop, but they are biding their time, waiting for the right moment. As far as St. Amant's car, talked to his crew. They say the car is just a little bit tight coming out of a yellow flag, but it only takes a few laps and that car warms right up. So both teams are very happy with how those 2 cars are handling right now.
And it is a battle within the war. St. Amant leading the points by just 16 over Scott Hansen. St. Amant scoring 2 points in qualifying. Hansen qualified out to the top 5. They award points, 5th on 5 points, 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, 1 point to the top 5 qualifiers in descending order. And St. Amant picking up 2 there, so we follow it point by point. He has an 18-point edge over Hansen. Hansen has led a lap. St. Amant has led a lap, so they both have 5 points there. So the calculators continue to burn the fingertips off the crew members. And now we see Rick Beebe, one of the drivers, getting back in the race. He had some problems in the St. Louis gear. Inside Challenge Chevrolet. Inside Challenge is an indoor theme park owned by owner Danny Hodges in Keokuk, Iowa. So if you want to go go-karting or play mini golf, you can do it year-round in Keokuk.
We need to go racing in Keokuk. That way,
a lot of great races out of Keokuk, Iowa. Don White, I recall very vividly, dominating the USAC stocks in the late 60s, early 70s. Alan Queen scheduled to get in his car earlier this season. Now the lineup is filled up by Rick Beebe and Mike Garvey. Queen did not have any pavement experience, so it looked like they went with the veterans. And now we'll look at Bill Baird. And Dave, it's pretty interesting. His story here, he's maintained lead lap status, or just about.
Oh, we saw him spin around, and he maintains 9th place position now. He's only 1 lap off the pace and running that lap on his own. Nobody else is just 1 lap off.
So as Bill Baird adjusts the visor on his helmet, we'll check back in with Sandy.
Well, I'm now with Steve Holtzhausen. Steve, 2 years ago, we saw that brilliant race here. You started the race on the pole, finished, led every lap, and then a tough situation tonight. What happened out there?
Well, it's a pretty rough night out there tonight. There's a lot of oil getting laid down on the track. It's real slick. Our car wasn't that good. You know, we were making some pit stops trying to get it going, and we just got caught up in a wreck.
That's it, just got caught up in a wreck.
It happens. I mean, you need better lap or track position than what we had when we were bringing it in the pits and putting tires on. We were losing our track position, having to run and back with the guys we probably shouldn't have been running with, and we just got caught up in a spin down there and no place to go.
How are the tires holding up as far as passing goes?
Our first set didn't look very good, but from then on there we seemed to be okay. I don't know if maybe we needed more scuff laps on them or what.
A tough day here for Steve Holtzhausen.
And as Steve Holtzhausen is going to spectate the rest of this race, there's 125 laps to go, Dave Burns.
Joel?
Will the drivers actually want to come in and pit? This is, about 15 laps under caution with all the oil down. Do you give up track position and maybe get back in the pack where if it becomes oily or the track becomes greased over, cars will lose traction, they'll be harder to pass. Do you want to give up track position to get fresh tires that may not matter because the track will be so greasy?
Yeah, that's a really tough call. I think that's going to be the main point, Jim, is how is the track when that caution comes out. If the track has come back a little bit, they've been able to work in the oil dry, they've gotten a bit of the grip back, they may choose to give up that track position. The other thing is by that time, they'll pretty much know who they have to race. They'll know who the cars are that they're lapping every 8 or 10 laps, and if there's a majority of them and a minority of the guys that they have to actually race with, they may choose to give up some of that track position.
And with as much oil dry down on this racetrack, your screen is not becoming fogged, so don't get out your remote and change it. It's just dusty here, going laps under caution, trying to get the oil dry cleaned away. The cars themselves have a thin layer of dust on them now. It won't be a factor once they get up to race conditions, but it is extremely dusty right now with all the oil dry down. We see Phyllis Gavin there taking notes for her husband Bud and the entire Automotive Promotions team. Driver Dave Senseman now trying to file back in after he had a lengthy pit stop to look like replace the rear end cover to get that car sealed back up.
Two guys that want to win here. One's done it before, one has not. Scott Hansen, the leader, looking for another victory here. Gary St. Amant has never won at Anderson Speedway, and he takes up the chase, running in second, chasing down Scott Hansen.
Hansen now working between those oil and dry stripes going into turn number 3. We see Bill Baird get a bit sideways as he's trying to get underneath St. Amant. Baird is a lap down in 9th. There's Dennis Lampman now battling with Mike Addy, and Lampman looks like he may have a problem as he went off of turn 4. Just maybe, yeah, it looks like there's smoke coming off the backside of Lampman's car that is not oil dry as he's trying to hold off Mike Eddy. Eddy will take 3rd, Lampman holding on to 4th, but now problems develop for the Gentle Giant.
Jim, we had a report that Dennis Lampman was one of the cars that was perhaps leaking the oil. Roger Slack looking underneath the cars as they came by, and Lampman is very loose now. He may be again leaking out of the rear end there, a common problem here in Anderson.
Oh man, Lampman ran so well at Berlin, had a problem. Now he's running into 3rd position, and now a mechanical gremlin has shown its face, and it looks like he now loses 4th position to Bob Seneker. Here comes Kevin Sawinski. So Lampman circling the high side of the racetrack, still under full power, but something is definitely amiss. Looks like a fluid leak off the back end of that 9 car.
Keep our eye on the flagman Roger Slack and see if he's coiling up a black flag. What they'll do is they'll show him a number on the flag stand so the drivers can see that while he's waving the black flag, so a driver knows if it is him that is in fact receiving the black flag.
Lampman is still on the race course, not being black flag, not being told to head to pit lane, so he is staying on race course, but he now watches this great battle just ahead of him develop, Kevin Sawinski and Bob Seneker. Seneker now running in the 6th position, trying to get 5th away from the brown and sharp number 1 of Kevin Sawinski.
Sawinski very smooth tonight, has not been overdriving the car, so it has appeared to us. And as the smoke continues to plume from Dennis Lampman, as we see in almost every shop, Kevin Sawinski and Bob Seneker now pull up toward the 3rd place car of Gary St. Amant.
Correction, yes, it is Sawinski in 4th. That is the 3rd place car of Gary St. Amant. The wins Ford. Sponsored in part by Burt Transfer, and as he goes through turns 1 and 2, you see that the crew did their job. St. Amant able to hold that car down. He was driving into the turns and drifting up just a bit. Sawinski sees an opening again. These guys have been battling all race long here at Anderson Speedway. As St. Amant exits the turn, Sawinski turns it left and gets out on the gas pedal, and puts that Lefebvre Racing Chevy right to the white stripe and may take the spot, and this time by he does it.
I I cannot believe that Gary St. Amant is happy with that Ford Thunderbird where it's running. I mean, he simply cannot hold it down, and Kevin Sawinski was able to drive by easily on the low side.
Sawinski now just ahead of this battle, and it'll be St. Amant holding off the Bluebird. Bob Seneca, who lost the rear bumper cover in one of the pit stops. It looks like it may have been from an earlier altercation, but yeah, it's gone, but it does not affect the handling, nor does it affect the performance of Bob Seneca, who looks to the inside of Gary St. Amant.
Think about all the thing it lost was a little sponsorship off the back end there. I think Lane Automotive used to be on the back end of Bob's car.
Fourth is Seneca, in fifth is Gary St. Amant. So St. Amant losing 2 spots in the last 10 laps. In sixth is Dennis Latman. Unofficially seventh, Dave Sensabaugh. Then comes Mike Miller in eighth. A lap down in ninth is Bill Baird. Here's your leader, Scott Hansen. There's the orange and black 26 of Bill Baird. It looks like he may be now 2 laps down as Brandon Sperling has bodywork shedding off of the right front of his car. Right behind the leaders, Sperling and Baird get together, but Hansen clear sailing thus far.
Baird may be trying to get back on the lead lap, Jim. I believe he was behind the leaders at the start of this green flag session, and he might be trying to work his way around to get back on the lead lap, or would that put him still 1 down? You're right, he may be 2 down.
Hansen is the leader. Here comes the rest of the field. You see a lot of bumped and battered and bruised race cars. Latman has 1 race car to work with, so they'll have to get that thing back together, but that's how quick laps are here. 12 seconds, and we follow Scott Hansen back into turn number 1 again. If the cars are just a tick off, they go down laps early, and the laps continue to compile laps down anyway for Bill Baird. I believe he is unofficially 2 laps down.
And we just checked, Jim, and Torch confirms that he's 1 lap down. So if he can get around Scott Hansen, he'll put himself back on the lead lap.
Hansen on a rail now, safely through the oil dry, coming up on the backside of the Odessa auction. Chevrolet of Carl Muscotton out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's the next obstacle for Hansen as he's the big man on campus here, the Anderson Corral, as he's now working the front stretch. Dennis Latman trying to stay on lead lap, now slowing in the number 9. He's now back into 8th position as Latman slows. He's now headed to pit lane, this time by. No, make it next time as he's pitted on the back half of the X. So Latman, another great run thwarted. Gentle Giant desperately looking for some sponsorship. His crew is a voluntary crew. He is the only full-time member of the crew, and he has a full-time job besides at Barricade Flasher. So indeed, it's his checkbook paid for these races, and it's unfortunate for Dennis, who will be get something pretty quick here as he's had some great runs. He's proved it here tonight. Even with adversity, he's able to stay on lead lap.
Well, this is his kind of track, too. Think of all the laps he's run at Slinger, how well he has run there in his late model car. He knows how to run a high-banked, short track like Anderson.
Doesn't matter where Mike Eddy runs, he's fast everywhere. So he's now running in second. Bill Baird, a lap car, separates Eddy from the leader, Scott Hansen, on the backstretch. Eddy last pitted on lap 239. We're now on lap 304, so we're closing into the finish here. 13-second laps are average speed race conditions, and Hansen continues to click them off in consistent fashion, building a lead now on Bill Baird. The lap car in 9th, and Mike Eddy. Eddy's running in second on the racetrack. He's now being closed in upon by the Brown and Sharp Chevrolet of Kevin Sawinski. You know, Jim, Mosinee, Wisconsin native, now trying to climb into the backside of Mike Eddy. Both these drivers use outside passes to gain position, but Sawinski has followed veteran Mike Eddy around this race course. Too many laps, I think, for Eddy to be able to hold off Sawinski. If Sawinski's got a faster car, I predict he's going to go around Mike Eddy before this thing's done. But again, he has to be faster than Mike Eddy quite considerably. Let's get an update in the pit area of Sawinski with Sandy Haig.
I was just talking to his crew chief, Mike Chappie. He tells me the car is just a little bit tight, but they are very happy with the way the car is working right now. Their hope is for another pit stop, but they are not willing to risk a pit stop if it means giving up precious track position. So we'll have to see how this one plays out with the Sawinski team.
Jim, we talked about whether or not they would come in later, and I would predict that if the leaders came in and Kevin Sawinski was running third, I don't think he'd stay out because there are few enough cars on the track running at a slower pace than the leaders are running that Mike Eddy, if he pitted, would probably come right back through the pack and pass him. So I think they'll play follow the leader when the time comes.
Unofficially, 20 cars still remain on the racetrack out of the 29 starters here, 27 starters, excuse me. Chet Weidner retired very early on in the Hubler Group Chevrolet. Tom Jones unofficially listed in the 26th position. Tony Roper had problems. Yale Conley, Billy Turner, Brad Loney, Joe Knott, all many laps down or out of this race.
Mike Eddy seesawing the wheel as he comes out of the turns. If you look inside the cockpit, you can see the white gloves of Eddy. And just a little bit of a seesaw every time he comes out of the turns there, trying to keep the car on the best line possible. There's no way to keep it from breaking away just a little bit off of each corner here. They try to gear the cars so that as they go into the turn, the cars aren't being woed down too much by too small of a gear. But they don't want to put such a large gear in that the car never reaches full potential by the end of a straightaway. So it's a real balance.
Take another look at second place now as Sawinski goes to the bottom of Mike Eddy. Not able to advance there. This is the battle for second behind leader Scott Hansen. Hansen going through traffic. 20 car lengths ahead of these guys, now making 15 as they close in. Hansen now just breaks free of lap traffic ahead of them. 3 cars await this battle. We'll see who has the better line as we're closing down to the finish here, the Anderson 400. Most laps this season run at any facility. Yes, it's only a quarter mile, but we haven't run 400 laps, 400 times around the circuit yet this year.
Yeah, it's only 100 miles. These cars could make it on fuel. They could make it on tires as well, but as we've seen, most of them have chosen to come in 2 and 3 times to get the fresh rubber on the inside and the outside of these ASA cars.
As we see Mike Miller now pulled to the infield, Brandon Sperling makes way for this battle, second and third. Mike Eddy and Kevin Sawinski now put a lap on Tony Raines. You saw the clean burn Pontiac momentarily there. Raines led the first 122 laps. Then fell back and then had some motor problems. He's now back out running. Mike Miller now being pushed as we see that overflow hose coming off the right front corner of that windshield. That is where the radiator overflow comes out. So the car heated up on him as they had to tape the front end to get it going. Great camera work down there by those Brad Hutton and the guys trying to get that shot, and indeed pretty hot under the hood.
Here goes Sawinski. Wow, is he confident? Jim, look at him on the outside of Mike Eddy. Remember we talked earlier about when you beat Mike Eddy? I think even when you pass Mike Eddy, you've done something in ASA. Especially when he's running as good as he's been running tonight. In fact, he used the quote-unquote Mike Eddy line to get around Mike Eddy. And now Jack Landis going to the outside of him as well. So we need to keep our eye on Mr. Eddy right now as Landis and the Maisto, Noah Yoder Ford, not on the lead lap, but running very strong here.
And Bill Baird gets around Scott Hansen as we see the 48 of Joe Knott trying to be refired. He was in the pits for many laps. He's been in the pits since lap 19.
Ouch. Say goodbye to a banner.
And we'll go caution as Joe Knott tries to get back on the racetrack. He's sideways now.
Joe has been doing a lot of coaching lately with a former All-American basketball star from Hope College up there in Michigan. She's been training him to get his mental game together well before the start of an ASA race, so that way he can go talk to the fans, he can do things ahead of time that might normally distract him. So they've been working hard on that. Joe is not in a position really to contend this evening.
Look at the strategy being played out. Mike Eddy shows his hand. Scott Hansen is the race leader, but now Mike Eddy and Gary St. Amant pull down behind the pace car. They are going to come down pit lane.
And like I said, everyone else is coming too, right, Jim?
No one else.
Yeah,
no one else. The inside, except
Gary
for Dave Sensible, who was many laps down. He was a very strong contender again here tonight. And that Lane Automotive number 4, sponsored in part by Mr. Gaskin. He's now many laps down. We see now Mike Eddy and Gary St. Amant come back down to the pits for what could be the final time.
Of course, Eddy was moving back, Jim, so really this may be an opportune moment for him. That spin by Joe Knott may have come at just the right time. Unique Ranch Howe Racing Enterprises Pontiac.
Unique pit situation here. Mike Eddy on the outside of the pit lane and Gary St. Amant on the inside. Sandy Hang was there to cover both stops.
Well, I tell you what, Scott Hansen's crew was down here getting ready to do a pit stop. Sawinski's team saw him. They started getting ready to do a pit stop. It looked like it was a big bluff down here, guys, because then both teams decided, hey, we're not going to go through with this, so the leaders stayed out.
16 cars remain on the racetrack, running in position 14 and 15 are Mike Eddy and Gary St. Amant. Can they pick their way through? 328 laps are in the Anderson 400. As the lights shine off the chrome wheel, the fans remain glued to their seats. It's far from over here as Scott Hansen, the leader, brought the field back to green, and Jack Landis was running behind Kevin Sawinski, who was second on the racetrack. You see the pace car, Hansen and Sawinski. Jack Landis 5 laps down going into turn number 3, gets to the inside of Sawinski. They touch. And Landis goes around quickly, and the caution flag once again popped right back out on the field. As far as again, Hansen to the racetrack into turn 3, just got the green flag, and Sawinski gets nudged by the no order forward of Jack Landis.
As far as we can tell, Jim, they were just about 5 laps down in the Jack Landis pit. As we see another look at the replay.
Landis' left front got on the apron. He may have gotten up into Sawinski unintentionally, but his left front tire got below that white line, and that white line separates the 18-degree banking from the 0-degree banking of the apron, so that may have upset the car enough to get him into the Sawinski ride.
Of course, you can hear the comments now. Crews from the Kevin Sawinski pit saying, why in the world was he racing him that hard? And then again, the Noah Yoder crew saying, we want to get another lap back and try to put him further up.
Gary St. Amant was running second. He now ducks down pit lane. What's going on, Sandy?
Well, they are putting on left side tires on Gary St. Amant's car. It's a chance they say they've got to take because the car was just not working out for Gary. It was tight. They thought after it would come out of the yellow, a few laps would warm up. He just didn't do it, and so now Gary is down in the way.
So he had 6 laps under caution to figure out that problem. They just got back to green when the caution flag flew immediately, and St. Amant able to take advantage there to finer tweak that car. He was at the very end of the racing line. They do restart single file here in the AC-Delco Challenge Series competition, so he had nothing to lose by coming back in for that adjustment. Brad Loney now has suited up, and he'll take the Flex Steel Pontiac back out for his lap counting effort to gain more points as the crew now putting things back together in the infield. I don't think they'll take anything less than one of everything to any more racetracks for the Loney crew. He'll run at the finish here. He won't be officially considered dropped out, so he'll stay intact with that 36 race streak.
Excellent point, Jim. And this is the kind of thing that's kept him in that streak all this time. They don't give up. They keep trying, and they brought it back one more time.
Loney was 8th in points coming into this race, right ahead of Kevin Sawinski by only 16 points. So we'll see if that has any factor in the overall picture of things as Hansen leads Sawinski and Bob Seneker back to green.
Running third now will be Sawinski in second, and third is Seneker. Fourth now showing is Mike Eddy. Bill Baird has gotten himself back on the lead lap in 5th. Gary St. Amant will come out in 6th position. In 7th now Brett Bell. In 8th Jack Landis. 9th is going to be Dave Sensiba. He is back on the track about 8 laps down, and running up the top 10, Brandon Sperling.
As we look at the charge by Scott Hansen, he knows there are guys behind him with a lot fresher rubber. Kevin Sawinski's is his immediate problem, but Mike Eddy and Gary St. Amant come through the field with reckless abandon down the backstretch. We see Mike Eddy there, running in running 4th. Here's the top 2. Right behind them is Bob Seneker. Hansen now unable to hold it on the turn number 4 exit, and Sawinski looks low. Into turn 1, the leaders side by side. Sawinski gives him a nudge. Is it enough to get by? Off of turn number 4, Hansen holds even, but Sawinski now charges to the front. And Kevin Sawinski retakes the point on lap 342.
Power move by Kevin Sawinski. He's going to take it away from Scott Hansen, and now has some 58 laps remaining to hold him off. Hansen's not giving up yet.
Scott Hansen has never finished worse than second here. He has 6 starts, 2 victories, and 4 second-place finishes. I don't think he'd be happy with second, but Sawinski put on one heck of a move there. He definitely has the fastest car on the racetrack right now.
Very much a power move. Sawinski's had a pole earlier this year at the La Crosse Speedway, and now poised to pick up his first victory ever.
As Hansen came off of turn number 4, half a lap prior to this, he got a little wide, and Sawinski went to the inside. He stayed his way for a good 2 laps, and coming off the front stretch there, Sawinski thought he was clear, and Hansen let him know that he might not be done yet. But
wow. Yeah,
Sawinski leads the Chevrolet of Hansen down the backstretch.
He just moved up high into him, Jim. The car squirted a little bit coming off of the turn. Scott held his line, and definitely correctly described as a bump pass.
Bill Baird passed Scott Hansen on the racetrack prior to our last caution, so he got back on lead lap. Now he's being scored in 5th position, so following up his 3rd place finish, a victory for Bill Baird and that Saturn Machine crew at Lancaster. He now is running 5th on what is considered one of the toughest racetracks to get around in the AC-Delco Challenge Series.
Bill has always driven well where it's tough. You mentioned Lancaster. That track was breaking up, and he ran extremely well because of his dirt track experience. Here, that may be the same kind of thing because, Jim, a lot of those dirt tracks are quarter and third and half miles as well.
Last week, he qualified in the top 20 in Berlin for the first time in 3 years. He's following that up with a great run. Keith Strunk and the guys have gotten the Saturn machine, Allen's Body Shop Chevrolet, working. They were persistent. He spun earlier in the race, lost the lap, gained it back under green flag conditions, and now runs 5th. Just behind him is Joe Knott, who is many laps down. He spent many laps behind pit wall. If you just joined us, he is off the pace, as is Dave Sensiba. Sensiba out of contention after scoring the pole position tonight.
And Jim, Bill Baird may be fired up as well because they won the golf tournament the other day, which, as we already mentioned, we didn't do so well in.
Kevin Sawinski, the leader, was at the go-kart track during the golfing event on Friday. Second is Scott Hansen. We'll take a look back through the field now. There's 16 cars still running on this racetrack. The race to the finish is certainly one of attrition. 16 cars of the 27 starters remain on course. There's Bob Seneca running in third, the Bluebird, and then Lane Automotive, 84. Brandon Sperling unofficially in the 12th position. Ultra Custom Wheels, Mike Rattel in Pontiac. Mike Eddy is 3rd position. Overall in the standings, 3rd in the GM Goodwrench Service Pontiac. He qualified 7th and has never been out of the hunt. Brett Bell running in the 7th position in the Wunderbar Ford. Had 2 spins tonight, but he persisted. Continues on, minus his crew chief, Dennis Grosnickel. They parted ways earlier this week. Bill Baird running in the 4th position now. Gary St. Amant is 5th and 6th. As we look at this battle in turn number 3, the 26 of Baird is 6th, 5th. In 6th is Gary St. Amant. There's Joe Knott, 119 laps down in the Ravy Ford. After an early race altercation, Dave Sensiba had the race lead. He now runs in the 9th position. They had a rear end leak. They fixed that. He's now back on course. Tony Raines spent over 60 laps in the pits in the Cleanburn Pontiac. He's well down in the chase. The Penske Shocks 87. He was looking for a great run tonight. Led the first 122 laps or so. Jack Landis, the rookie out of Edgerton, Ohio, the Maisto Noah Yoder Ford, now runs in the 7th position, off lead lap. He's now getting some valuable track time here at Anderson. There's Ted Smokestad out of Minnesota. He's now running in the 12th position, unofficially, the Super America Pontiac. And Aaron Huff in the 86 car. He is now running off the pace in 11th. Trying to survive here as we see Billy Turner go around. Billy Turner had some problems early. They tore the bodywork off of that car, and he's been running like a modified since and not running too bad.
Yeah, Billy Turner's been running pretty quick, and he ran pretty quick in the last chance qualifier that put him in the 400 tonight.
Trouble in turn 1. Mike Eddy spinning ahead of Gary St. Amant. He flattens the left rear tire and continues on, but immediately heads to pit lane. Flat left rear tire for Mike Eddy, and he spun on a dime. A lot of white smoke went up in the air. Our 15th caution. Sandy Hang is there.
It's like, as you mentioned, the left rear tire. We're scrambling around here to see exactly. Yes, he did cut the left rear tire. He scrambled in immediately. He is down and away. Precious time for Mike Eddy.
Wow, so he'll come back out on the racetrack. He'll beat the pace car out, so he'll stay on lead lap, but what a disappointment for Mike Eddy.
They only changed the left rear, Jim, in that whole melee. They did not change the left front tire, and he just barely beat the pace car out of the pits. Now, normally he would not have been allowed to come into the pits immediately as he did, but under ASA rules, when you are involved in an accident or something like that, you don't have to obey the pits closed sign, and so Mike was able to scoot immediately into pit road.
So a bad break for Mike Eddy. However, he stays on lead lap. He'll be no worse than 5th or 6th position when he comes back to green. We're closing within 35 laps of the finish here now.
What is Kevin Sawinski thinking? I mean, he is a rookie, his first year in ASA. He's won in ARCO before. He was a 2-time champion there, but he is running with the best of them right now, and he's leading the Anderson 400, as you mentioned, on one of the toughest tracks in the league.
Gary St. Amant was nearly involved with that altercation with Mike Eddy. Sandy, is there anything happening in St. Amant's pit?
Oh, let me tell you, their crew is very happy. They feel that they have a shot at this race in a big way. Remember, they came in and took tires. They had to take the chance because the car was just not right. At the same time, Scott Hansen did not come in, and neither did Sawinski. So this may be
to map the progress as St. Amant feels he's on a racehorse.
There's one of the cars that really got helped in this situation. That's Bill Baird, and he now runs all the way up in 4th, Jim. When Mike Eddy dropped a position, actually dropped several positions, Bill Baird scooted up to 4th, and he's moving in now on that front pack of 3.
Leaders now on the front straightaway. Bill Baird within sight of the missing rear cover of Bob Seneker's 84. Only 10 car lengths back to the leaders, to this car in 4th.
Started 20th. Look at the progression he's made tonight.
Made the race on points, had ignition problems, did not turn a lap in qualifying. So he came in this race very optimistic. Didn't have a lot of track time though, and certainly paying off for this Sturgis, Kentucky-based team.
Well, Jim, they talk about chasing a car all night long. That's one of the things about running with the American Speed Association, the long races that they run. If you start bad, you'll still have a chance at the finish because you can chase it all night long, change tire stagger, work on getting the car to the perfect type of setup for the driver by the end, and that appears to be what they've done with Bill Baird.
He is holding off Gary St. Amant. If St. Amant has a racehorse, I think the Kentucky Derby better watch out for Bill Baird. He's coming.
And St. Amant, it does appear, Jim, that car is much better than it was earlier in the night. And St. Amant now looks like he can run that low line. We'll see if he can make it stick on the high side, or he may shoot low, as Baird is unable to hold that low line.
This is the battle for 3rd position now, as your race leader Kevin Sawinski is comfortably ahead of Scott Hansen. 25 circuits remaining, 26 to go now for race leader Kevin Sawinski. This is the battle for 3rd, just off of turn number 4, into turn number 1 quickly on this tight quarter mile. Trying to work around Aaron Huff, the New Palestine Drywall Supply Pontiac. They do so completely off of turn 4, and it settles back down with a 2-car length bulge for the Saturn Machine Chevy of Bill Baird.
The leaders are less than a straightaway ahead of this group here, so Baird and St. Amant in their own battle, trying to get all the way up and maybe have something for Sawinski, but Jim Sawinski is really hooked up as we near the end.
This is the battle for the 4th position. We stand corrected as Bob Seneker runs 3rd, 4th, and 5th now. Bill Baird, Gary St. Amant 5th. St. Amant looking toward the championship. Main competitor Scott Hansen. Unfortunately, St. Amant's 5th, and Hansen's leading or in 2nd spot in this race.
It's going to be very tight when we leave Anderson tonight as far as the points look. Now, Gary St. Amant has tried to go high and low around Bill Baird. Most of the drivers, if they are quicker than the car in front of them, may give them just a tap to let them know that they're there before they try to really root their way in there. But if they're unable to get around on the high side, Gary St. Amant may stick the nose down there and really try to force his way underneath Bill Baird.
Bill Baird is gaining on Kevin Sawinski. Sawinski the leader here at the stripe. All these 5 cars are on lead lap. There's Baird in 4th. St. Amant in 5th. We'll get an interval, see if it's closing the gap here. As it looks like he's climbing on the backside of Bob Seneker. He's closing in is Bill Baird on the Bluebird. St. Amant riding along in the 5th position.
There is Sawinski, your leader. There are less than 20 laps to go, and no one is making a challenge on him. Jim, if they were going to do it, they'd be doing it by now.
Back to Bill Baird, a 1.7 second interval. Exactly the same as it was a couple of laps ago, so it's consistent. The lead of Sawinski over the 4th place, Bill Baird.
Jim, that crew with Kevin Sawinski is a very fun-loving crew. Now, Mike Chaffee is probably the most seasoned of all the people in their crew. He is the crew chief, and a lot of those guys that really enjoy coming out here, they are going to be elated if Kevin comes home with his first victory.
Scott LeFevre making preparations for a big old party in the shop up at Minnesota State Fair time and Labor Day weekend. Their shop not too far away from the fairgrounds there, and what better way to display a victory trophy than go home to Minnesota.
A lot of traffic.
Points.
A lot of traffic now in front of this battle. See him go around Billy Turner, Carl Miscotten, and Tony Raines, who is many laps down. So Gary St. Amant will have to back off for the moment and then try to take it up again with Bill Baird.
The great thing to see is these drivers in the American Speed Association are so conscious when they're off a lap or off a couple laps, they're not going to get in the way. They're not going to race you into the turn. Tony Raines is letting these guys race for position, in some cases race for the win here. As Sawinski checks out of the field, these other guys running out here know Sawinski's a leader, and Scott Hansen also needs to be let go if indeed he's coming up upon those guys. And let's check back in with Sandy on a story if Hansen has anything left here at the finish.
Well, I was just talking to Scott Hansen's crew chief, and he says that Scott is just trying to hang on right now. The tires have gone away. The car is loose. He's just trying to maintain position at this point in the race.
Hansen has 3 car lengths on Bob Seneker, and if Seneker is monitoring the television broadcast, he might want to turn it up a bit to get position on Scott if Scott is hanging on in these final 10 laps. See if Seneker can close in, but it looks like Bob may also be hanging on the ragged edge to finish this one.
He might have the same problem. You know, these tires, they hang on for the longest time, but they aren't good all the way through the long laps here. And so by not being good, we mean they're slippery, and it is incredibly hard to handle the car when the tires have a lot of laps on them.
Bill Baird in fourth. Gary St. Amant is fifth as we check into this battle. You can see St. Amant twisting that car off of turn 2 and 4, trying to get position underneath Bill Baird, but Baird able to power smoothly off the turn. And boy, has Bill Baird improved this season or what? He's very much a candidate for the most improved driver in 1996, and he got the award last year, but very fitting if he did get it for the second year in a row as he continues to improve. Ran 63 dirt shows in 1993. Talked to his friend Kenny Schrader, and Schrader said, I think you should try ASA if you want to go pavement racing, and indeed, he's got it figured out tonight at Anderson.
They've come through a lot, Jim, this season. I mean, earlier this year, his crew chief, Keith Strunk, chicken pox. That's not a good thing when you're an adult. Bill had the drive shaft come through the car at Cedar Rapids, injured him, but he maintained. And then that same race had electrical fire and smoke in the cockpit, which made it very sick. So they're really happy to come back this strong, as they did also at Lancaster a few weeks ago.
Fourth and fifth as we wind it down here. 3 circuits to go, and St. Amant still looking to the outside. Rolls it into turns 1 and 2, not able to make the pass. 2 circuits remain for race leader Kevin Sawinski. Ahead of this duo is Bob Seneker in third. There's Hansen in second. Now see if Hansen has anything. He will not be able to catch Sawinski tonight, but can he hold off Bob Seneker? They touch off of turn 2, the white flag displayed. Off turn 2 for the final time. Kevin Sawinski down the backstretch. It is an 11th ASA start. Kevin Sawinski will come home the victor. Second place will go to Scott Hansen. Third to Bob Seneker. Fourth to Bill Baird. Fifth to Gary St. Amant. As we see the rest of the field stream down. The last rookie to win, 1991. Tim Steele at Winchester. We now have a new winner in the American Speed Association by the name of Kevin Sawinski. In the Coleman Racing Products, Brown and Sharp Chevrolet. Business as usual. Sawinski finds victory lane for the first time in ASA. The AC-Delco Challenge Series on Prime. Brought to you in part by Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it's wins, it works. And by your GM Goodwrench service dealer. We want your business. For the third consecutive year, the Anderson 400 has produced a brand new winner in ASA. Tracy, his girlfriend, is there. She's crying. Kevin Sawinski is a very, very elated winner. Let's go down to Sandy Hang for his comments.
A lot of tears and hugs here from your crew. It's got to be an incredible experience. This is your first ASA race here at Anderson, and you take the checkered flag.
Yeah, you know, I can't thank the crew enough. They gave me a great car right off the trailer yesterday. We were hoping for a pole run. You know, Holhausen was quick hot lapping. We were like second quick hot lapping, and you know, we just missed the setup on qualifying. But boy, they hit it right on the head for the race here. You know, I can't thank them enough. Mike Chaffee, the crew chief, the Bon Suss, the tire guy, you know, they were just fabulous all day. They put this Brown and Sharp Coleman Racing Products car up front all day long.
At what point in the race did you know that you had a real shot at taking the checkered?
Well, I think, you know, early on in the race, Eddie went by us when Hansen kind of rooted us up there, which is common short track racing here, you know. So when we were able to catch back up to Mike Eddy and Scott Hansen and then start racing with them, I thought, you know, we got as good a shot as anybody winning this race.
Looking at your car, you do have a few battle scars. You tangled up with a few folks. Who did you tangle with the most or more than anyone?
Well, actually, me and Scott got together there towards the end, and I knew I had to make a run on them fast when my tires were cool. And once I got up underneath them, the car started to get a little tight, and we got together a few times, and thank God he backed off and let me up in there instead of turning me in the wall. But I got to congratulate him. He had a heck of a run. He's been real helpful to me here. You know, we talked back and forth last night a little bit on what the car's going to do during the race, and he's been super to me all year long. So I thank him.
Well, here's Kevin Sawinski in victory lane.
You know, Jim, that car didn't have a lot of damage on it prior to this race, so they didn't have a lot of Anderson-ready parts for it. It doesn't look like they do yet.
Tracy Traversky has no idea what to do besides smile, laugh, and enjoy the moment. Kevin Sawinski's the winner. Guess what? Hansen finishes second or better again. We'll talk to him when we come back here to Anderson. We've seen the battle scars at Anderson. We've seen drivers come, we've seen drivers go. In 1984, Bob Seneker scored his last victory here in ASA competition. We have a new winner tonight for the third consecutive year, and a record that stays intact is a top two or better finish for our second place finisher tonight, Scott Hansen. Sandy Haig.
Well, I'm right here with Scott Hansen right now. I want to talk to you real quickly about that bluff at the end. Looked like your team was ready to pit, and then you didn't. You bluffed Sawinski out. What were you thinking?
Well, you know, I needed them guys to try and come in. My car was way too loose there, but I knew if I tightened it up, we didn't have enough of a car to run up front. So I just hoped track position and all that oil out there would help me. But, man, a couple, 3 years in a row, second place, they take it away from me. 40, 50 to go. We had a good run. Car's all set for Milwaukee. We just changed engines, and away we go.
Scott Hansen taking second place tonight.
Hansen started 10th on the day. He's kissing his daughter there, and it's great to see Scott enjoy Anderson. He said he doesn't usually lose the jewelry races. He's got a Rolex and a ring for winning here at Anderson Speedway, and finishing second is not a bad deal. The driver out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, heading to Milwaukee next weekend, where he'll be awfully tough as well. Another guy who had a great run. Here's Scott Hansen leading at this point in time, and here comes Bill Baird. Bill Baird has the wins winning move tonight. Hansen leading, Baird trying to get his lap back, and he does it right here with about 45 laps to go. And Bill Baird has received the wins winning move. $500 goes his way from our friends at Wins. And it certainly was working tonight for Bill Baird as he got around the leader, Scott Hansen, and stayed on lead lap to the finish.
Yeah, Scott gave him a lot of racing room there, Jim, a lot of respect. Bill says they're now showing him a lot more respect than they used to. You got to earn that in ASA, and I think Bill has really earned that.
Ken Delavasti directing things through victory lane area. Now the crew coming up. The Weidner Chevrolet Geo people excited to see a bow tie in victory lane. And now Kevin joined by the entire staff. There's Mike Chaffee directly to his left in a very excited area there. And finishing third tonight, a very consistent run, a great run as he marches his way up in the points. Here's Bob Seneker.
Sneaky Seneker does it again, third place, moving on up in the points. It's got to feel good to be here, Bob.
Well, for a change this year, we're finishing up in the front instead of putting around the trailer. We'd like to win, but right now we'll take the podium. The third spot is really fine. It's a tough little race. We're happy to come out of it with as little damage as we did. Kevin ran good. I'm happy for him.
Bob Seneker taking third here today.
Seneker very excited, and as we look at Bob chewing on the ice there, warm night. We mentioned it was cool, but in those race cars it gets awfully hot here at Anderson. And here's the look at how they finished. Sawinski the winner, Hansen second, Seneker third. We heard from all three of those guys. Bill Baird with a fourth place finish. Gary St. Amant, the point leader coming in tonight, finishes up fifth. Mike Eddy, a good run in sixth. Sensible, Landis, Sperling trudging on. And Aaron Hoff, 10th place by far, his career best in his rookie run.
Top 10 finish, who'd have thunk it. Brett Bell in 11th place finish as they regrouped. Ted Smokestad 12th, Carl Muscatton in 13th, Mike Miller in 14th. Dennis Lampman, after running so well early, ends up in 15th tonight. Tony Raines will finish 16th. They got the car back on the track, picked up a lot of positions. 17th to Joe Knott, same story. Billy Turner soldiered on all evening long, and Steve Holshausen ran so quick but fell out midpoint in the race, finishes 19th.
Harold Fair, Joe Conley, Brad Loney, Rick Beebe finishes up 24th. Tony Roper, who started third on the day, will finish up 25th after problems with the rear end. Tom Jones in the first car out, Chet Blant on the Hubler Group Chevrolet would like to wish his wife Marianne a speedy recovery as she has a little bit of hospital time ahead of her. And I'd like to congratulate all these drivers for surviving Anderson. And boy, oh boy, Chevrolet picking up some serious Manufacturers Cup points as they finished 1-2 tonight. Ford gets third this evening. They each get points towards the championship. Tune in to Prime on Sunday, September 8th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 o'clock Central Time when the AC-Delco Challenge Series presents the Wisconsin 300 from Wisconsin International Raceway in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. We'll bring you live coverage of this exciting ASA race. That's Sunday afternoon, October 1st at 4 p.m. for the Wisconsin 300 on Prime. For Sandy Hang and Dave Burns up here in the pits, I'd like to thank you for joining us. I'm Jim Trito, and I have a point update for you. Dave, what do the points look like as we close things out here?
Gary St. Amant is still ahead. Now Scott Hansen is only 5 points behind him in the chase.
Two-way radio communication equipment provided by Racing Electronics, the official communications of the American Speed Association. And there we get a shot at the happy crew and Sawinski, who's won many short track races. Just doing another job here, getting the victory. You've been watching live ASA Racing on the AC-Delco Challenge Series from the Anderson Speedway in Anderson, Indiana. This has been a presentation of Group 5 Television.